Friends, if you want to watch the super hit movie Warfare in English, then you must like this video. If you are visiting our channel for the first time, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and stay updated with all the latest movie breakdowns and reviews. In today's video, we are going to talk about an intense and action-packed movie called Warfare. This film has been gaining a lot of attention among fans of military action and modern warfare stories. We will cover what this movie is about, where you can watch it, and all the exciting behind-the-scenes details that make Warfare such an incredible cinematic experience. Warfare is a film that combines high-level military strategy, emotional storytelling, and breathtaking visuals. It captures the chaos and reality of war in a way that feels authentic and powerful. The movie is set in a modern-day conflict zone, where elite soldiers are sent on a dangerous mission that tests their limits, both physically and mentally. The story follows a group of brave men and women who must navigate through betrayal, loyalty, and survival in the face of impossible odds. Each scene keeps you engaged with intense battles, emotional twists, and character-driven drama that feels both realistic and deeply moving. The film was developed over several years, starting from an ambitious script that aimed to portray warfare not just as a spectacle but as a human experience. During the pre-production phase, the director and writing team spent months researching real military operations and tactics to ensure authenticity. Military consultants were brought on board to train the cast in weapon handling, formations, and combat realism. This dedication to accuracy gives Warfare a level of credibility that sets it apart from typical action movies. When it comes to technical departments, Warfare excels on every level. The cinematography is one of the film's strongest elements, with stunning aerial shots, gritty close-ups, and a realistic depiction of battlefields. The camera work puts the viewer right in the middle of the action, making every explosion and gunfire feel immediate and impactful. The lighting and production design further enhance the sense of realism, blending the harshness of war zones with the emotional tone of the story. The editing is sharp and fast-paced, keeping the audience engaged while balancing action sequences with quieter, more emotional moments. The music of Warfare adds a powerful emotional layer to the story. The score, composed by an award-winning musician, perfectly captures the tension, courage, and sacrifice of the characters. From heart-pounding action tracks to somber moments of reflection, the soundtrack supports every mood of the film. The sound design is equally impressive, with realistic gunfire, explosions, and ambient effects that make the movie an immersive experience. Filming took place in multiple international locations, including deserts, forests, and urban environments to authentically depict different war zones. The production team faced several challenges, such as extreme weather conditions and logistical hurdles, but the end result was worth it. The dedication of the crew and cast shows in every frame. The film's budget was significant, allowing for top-notch special effects, practical stunts, and large-scale action sequences. Despite the high cost, the movie performed exceptionally well at the box office, becoming one of the top-grossing military action films of its time. The star cast of Warfare delivered outstanding performances that brought depth and realism to their characters. The lead actor, known for his intense roles, gave one of the best performances of his career, portraying a soldier torn between duty and emotion. The supporting cast, including both veterans and newcomers, added authenticity to the team dynamics. Each actor spent time with real military personnel to understand their characters better, which is evident in their on-screen chemistry and physical accuracy. Some standout moments include emotionally charged scenes that highlight the cost of war, leadership struggles, and the impact of loss. In terms of story, Warfare balances large-scale action with human emotion. The plot is fast-moving but grounded in personal stories of courage, fear, and sacrifice. It shows how war tests not only the body but also the mind and heart. The director's vision was to present warfare as more than just conflict. It's about survival, brotherhood, and the moral dilemmas faced by those who serve. Overall, Warfare is a must-watch movie for anyone who enjoys realistic military dramas and thrilling action films. It's a perfect mix of entertainment and emotional depth, offering audiences a cinematic experience that feels authentic and powerful. Whether you're watching for the intense battle sequences, the heartfelt story, or the brilliant performances, Warfare delivers on all fronts. So make sure to watch this video till the end to get everything you need to know about the movie Warfare, and don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments about what you found most exciting in this incredible film. Warfare is a 2025 war film co-written and co-directed by Ray Mendoza and Alex Garland that embeds the audience with a Navy SEAL platoon in a single, intense real-time sequence drawn from Mendoza's own Iraq War experiences. The film was developed from the memories and testimonies of platoon members and aims to recreate the confusion, moral pressure, and raw immediacy of a mission gone wrong. The story places Alpha 1, an elite SEAL team, into a two-story Iraqi house shortly after the Battle of Ramadi. They are positioned to overwatch a nearby market and provide JTAC coordination for Allied forces moving through insurgent territory. What begins as a standard Overwatch mission deteriorates quickly as communication becomes fractured, air support is delayed, and the local situation shifts in unexpected ways. The movie follows the team almost in real time as the tension rises. Translators gather two families into one bedroom for safety, snipers watch the streets for hostile movement, and a seemingly small event, a single grenade tossed into a sniper's room, sets off a chain reaction. The explosion leaves Elliot Miller, the corpsman and lead sniper, gravely injured, forcing the platoon to call for medical evacuation while trapped under heavy fire. As the situation grows more chaotic, the soldiers must make split-second decisions that test their loyalty, training, and moral limits. Warfare captures not only the brutal intensity of combat but also the psychological toll it takes on those who fight it. The principal cast brings powerful and realistic performances to their roles. Tfero Wunatai portrays Ray Mendoza, the communications officer and JTAC pointman who connects the team to air support and command. Will Poulter plays Eric, the lieutenant and team leader who must balance tactical reasoning with human compassion as the mission collapses around him. Cosmo Jarvis gives a gripping performance as Elliot Miller, the wounded sniper whose survival becomes the platoon's emotional and strategic focus. Kit Connor plays Tommy, the youngest gunner whose inexperience adds a layer of vulnerability to the team dynamic. Taylor John Smith appears as Frank, Miller's sniper partner and closest ally, while Joseph Quinn portrays Sam, the leading petty officer and moral center of the group. Charles Melton and Finn Bennett play Jake and John, members of the supporting Alpha 2 squad sent to provide cover fire. The ensemble is rounded out by Michael Gandolfini, Adane Bradley, Noah Centineo, and others who contribute to the authenticity and tension of the story. As the narrative unfolds, Warfare deliberately avoids large-scale political commentary or detailed exposition about the war itself. Instead, it focuses on the micro-level decisions of soldiers caught in immediate danger. Every radio call, command order, and hesitation becomes a matter of life and death. The film's near real-time structure and immersive camera work place the viewer directly in the middle of the chaos. Long takes, realistic lighting, and handheld cinematography add to the sense of urgency, giving audiences the feeling of being embedded with the team. The sound design enhances the experience with echoing gunfire, muffled explosions, and radio static that blurs the line between cinematic storytelling and documentary realism. The screenplay is tightly written, filled with terse, realistic dialogue that mirrors how soldiers actually communicate under pressure. There are no dramatic monologues or exaggerated heroics. Instead, the film emphasizes teamwork, discipline, and instinct. The performances are subtle yet emotionally charged, showing the brotherhood and quiet fear shared among the men. Each actor was trained by real Navy SEAL veterans to ensure accurate movement, weapon handling, and tactical communication, which adds a remarkable level of authenticity. Warfare's story explores themes of duty, leadership, sacrifice, and moral conflict. Eric's struggle to maintain control while his men face injury and panic is central to the film's tension. Mendoza's character illustrates the mental strain of managing communication between command and the field, often being the only lifeline for the entire unit. Meanwhile, Miller's injury becomes the emotional core, forcing the platoon to weigh mission objectives against their duty to save a fellow soldier. The film's climax is both heartbreaking and profound, showing that war rarely offers clear victories, only survival and loss. The conclusion of Warfare avoids the typical Hollywood hero ending. Instead of a triumphant rescue, the film ends on a somber note, leaving the audience to reflect on the cost of conflict. It emphasizes the psychological scars left behind, the burden of leadership, and the unspoken brotherhood that binds soldiers even in tragedy. Overall, Warfare is not just an action film, it is an immersive, emotional, and brutally honest portrayal of modern combat. With outstanding direction, authentic performances, and a raw storytelling approach, it stands out as one of the most realistic depictions of military life in recent years. Each cast member delivers intensity and depth, making Warfare a must-watch for anyone who appreciates powerful, character-driven war dramas that go beyond explosions and tactics to explore the true human cost of battle. Warfare opens with a hauntingly quiet image that immediately establishes its tone and realism. The camera moves slowly through the narrow streets of a war-torn Iraqi neighborhood at dawn. Dust drifts through the air, distant gunfire echoes faintly, and the voices of a Navy SEAL team fade in over the sound of boots hitting the ground. From the very beginning, the film draws you into its immersive perspective. There are no establishing titles or political explanations. Instead, the audience is thrust directly into the moment, observing the soldiers as they enter a two-story house that will become both their stronghold and their trap for the rest of the film. This opening sets up the environment and introduces the feeling of being inside a real operation, precise, tense, and unpredictable. The setup establishes the core team of Alpha 1. Lieutenant Eric, played by Will Poulter, commands with steady control, balancing professionalism with empathy. Ray Mendoza, portrayed by Dfero Wunatai, handles communications and coordinates with air support, functioning as the link between command and the field. Elliot Miller, played by Cosmo Jarvis, is the team's corpsman and sniper, known for his calm under pressure. The early scenes show them setting up overwatch positions, preparing their weapons, and quietly interacting with two Iraqi families who live in the building. Through small gestures and limited dialogue, we sense their humanity and the unspoken routine of war. This sequence is deliberately calm, showing soldiers in waiting mode before the chaos erupts. The inciting incident occurs when a suspicious signal is intercepted on the radio. It suggests that insurgents are organizing nearby, and the team prepares for a possible confrontation. The first real spark of tension arrives when a child outside spots the SEALs in the window and runs off. Moments later, gunfire breaks out in the market below, and Alpha 1 goes into full combat mode. This transition from silence to action is sudden and jarring, mirroring the unpredictable nature of warfare. It's also the point where the audience's trust in stability disappears. The soldiers' communication becomes frantic, the radio connection to air support drops intermittently, and the team realizes they might be isolated. The rising action begins with the team fortifying their position. Eric gives precise orders, Mendoza struggles to reach command for reinforcements, and Miller sets up for counter-sniper fire. A series of smaller skirmishes tests the platoon's nerves and coordination. Between bursts of action, we see human moments, soldiers sharing brief words, comforting frightened civilians, or taking deep breaths between firefights. The camera rarely leaves the building, creating a claustrophobic feeling that keeps the audience trapped with the team. This sustained tension becomes the emotional heartbeat of the film. The midpoint turn hits with devastating force. During an intense exchange, a grenade is tossed through a window, exploding near Miller and wounding him severely. The sound fades to ringing silence as his teammates rush to stop the bleeding. This becomes the emotional and tactical pivot of the story. Eric must now choose between risking more lives to save Miller or completing the mission objective. Mendoza's desperate radio calls for a case-fac go unanswered, emphasizing the isolation of the unit. This sequence is the emotional core of the movie and one of its most powerful moments, not just for the physical violence but for the way it reveals each soldier's character under stress. From here, the narrative tightens further. Every decision carries a heavier weight. The house becomes a pressure cooker as insurgents close in. The film cleverly controls the flow of information. We, like the characters, don't know what's happening outside. The story's linear structure, unfolding in real time, keeps the tension unbroken. There are no flashbacks or time jumps. Every second counts, heightening the realism and urgency. The limited perspective also builds empathy. We experience the fear, confusion, and adrenaline exactly as the team does. The final act begins when the team finally establishes brief contact with air support. Relief flickers, but it's short-lived. The extraction zone is compromised, and the platoon realizes they must fight their way out. The final sequence is a brutal, close-quarters battle that tests their discipline and unity. Eric, now visibly exhausted, pushes his men to move, refusing to abandon Miller despite the impossible odds. Mendoza calls in an airstrike dangerously close to their position, a desperate gamble that brings both salvation and destruction. The explosion clears their escape route but leaves emotional wreckage behind. The finale delivers not triumph but quiet devastation. The survivors emerge from the smoke, battered and hollow. There's no victory music or patriotic celebration. Instead, the camera lingers on the faces of the soldiers and civilians who remain. The film ends with Mendoza's radio voice breaking as he confirms their status to command, the sound fading to silence over the image of the empty house. The structure closes the circle. What began as an arrival ends as an exit, but the cost is immense. Warfare's plot succeeds because it builds intensity through realism and restraint. It doesn't rely on twists or spectacle. Instead, it uses perspective, pacing, and emotional honesty to create a relentless experience. Every narrative choice, from the real-time unfolding to the limited point of view, keeps the audience deeply connected to the characters. The key turning points, from the intercepted signal to the grenade blast and the final extraction attempt, are designed to reveal character through action. By the time the credits roll, the viewer isn't left cheering but reflecting. Warfare tells a story not of conquest but of endurance, humanity, and the silent aftermath of survival. Warfare builds its power not only through its combat realism but through the emotional and psychological development of its characters. The film's tension is deeply human, rooted in the quiet transformations that occur under pressure. Each character begins with a clear sense of identity, defined by duty, camaraderie, or survival instinct, and by the end, those traits are tested, reshaped, or broken. The story focuses on how individuals evolve when the clarity of command is clouded by chaos and fear. The character development in Warfare is less about dramatic speeches and more about micro-expressions, gestures, and brief exchanges that expose the moral cost of war. Lieutenant Eric, played by Will Poulter, is the film's central figure of authority. At the beginning, he represents order and discipline. His leadership style is firm but compassionate, the mark of a man who believes in both mission success and the well-being of his team. He is calm, composed, and emotionally restrained. However, as the mission spirals out of control, we see the cracks in his armor. When his men are trapped and one of them is gravely injured, his rationality begins to clash with his empathy. A key moment of transformation occurs when he must decide whether to call for extraction or hold the position despite the danger. His silence before giving the order is a telling detail. He understands that every decision carries lives on its weight. By the film's end, Eric's calm has hardened into resignation. He no longer carries the illusion of control. He leads because there is no other choice. His journey is not one of triumph but of acceptance, the recognition that leadership in war is often about survival, not victory. Ray Mendoza, portrayed by Tfero Wunatai, begins as the heart of the team. As the communications officer and JTAC, he is the connective tissue between the platoon and command. His early scenes show confidence and professionalism. He cracks small jokes, lightens the mood, and reassures the local families in the safe room. Mendoza's initial strength lies in his faith in the system, the belief that command will always respond, that air support will always arrive. As the battle intensifies and his radio calls go unanswered, we watch that faith dissolve. One powerful beat comes when he repeats a transmission after realizing no one is listening. His voice drops, frustration creeping in, and his face shows a silent panic he refuses to verbalize. By the end, Mendoza is transformed from a confident operator into a man aware of how fragile the line between order and chaos truly is. His final radio call in the last scene is delivered not with strength but with exhaustion, symbolizing the emotional toll of responsibility. Elliot Miller, played by Cosmo Jarvis, embodies the quiet warrior archetype. When we meet him, he is calm, focused, and unshakably reliable. His relationship with his fellow sniper Frank, portrayed by Taylor John Smith, gives him warmth and humanity. Miller's role as the corpsman also makes him a caretaker. He heals others, not himself. His arc is about vulnerability, both physical and emotional. After being wounded by the grenade at the midpoint, his injury becomes a metaphor for the team's collective breakdown. Even as he bleeds, Miller insists others stay on task, revealing a selflessness that defines his character. The small gestures, his hand gripping Frank's arm, his attempt to keep talking through pain, illustrate courage that feels real, not cinematic. Miller does not survive to see resolution, but his character's endurance becomes the moral backbone of the film. His suffering exposes the humanity beneath the tactical precision. Frank, the sniper partner, undergoes a subtler evolution. He starts as Miller's shadow, composed and technical. But when Miller is injured, Frank's emotional restraint collapses. His anger at command for not responding becomes personal and desperate. There is a brief but haunting moment where Frank stares at his rifle, questioning its purpose after being powerless to protect his friend. His final actions in the extraction sequence show both rage and devotion, a man torn between revenge and duty. Among the supporting cast, Tommy, played by Kit Connor, serves as the lens of innocence. The youngest member of the team, Tommy represents every soldier's first confrontation with real war. His early scenes show eagerness and trust in his leaders, but as the situation worsens, his silence grows. In one scene, after a civilian is killed in crossfire, his eyes dart away, unable to process the guilt. By the end, he is visibly older, not in age, but in spirit. His transformation encapsulates the loss of innocence that warfare so powerfully depicts. The antagonist in warfare is not a person but a presence, chaos itself. The insurgents remain mostly unseen, heard through distant gunfire or radio chatter. This deliberate choice shifts the focus from good versus evil to survival versus collapse. The enemy becomes circumstance, confusion, and fear. It's a narrative decision that turns internal conflict into the true battleground. Each character's arc intertwines to create a portrait of collective endurance. Eric learns the limits of control, Mendoza confronts the fragility of faith, Miller embodies sacrifice, Frank grapples with emotional collapse, and Tommy faces the death of naivety. None of them emerge unchanged, each carries a scar that defines the film's emotional truth. By the end of Warfare, there is no grand moment of closure. The characters' growth is measured in what they've lost, their certainty, their composure, their innocence. Small gestures tell their story. Eric's trembling hand when he radios command, Mendoza's blank stare after the final explosion, Tommy's silent nod as the survivors walk away. Warfare's character development succeeds because it captures transformation not through speeches or redemption arcs but through quiet human detail. These men do not conquer war, they endure it, and in that endurance, they reveal the fragile strength that defines true character. The performances in Warfare are the foundation of its realism and emotional power. Each actor seems fully immersed in their role, avoiding the grandstanding often seen in war movies. The film's intensity depends on its cast embodying the claustrophobic anxiety of combat while still expressing individual humanity. Through subtle gestures, controlled movements, and stripped-down dialogue, the actors make every moment feel immediate and authentic. It is a film where performance becomes experience, and where silence often says more than speech. Will Poulter delivers one of his most disciplined performances as Lieutenant Eric, the team's commanding officer. Poulter's strength lies in his precision. He never overplays authority or emotion. Instead, his control becomes a character trait in itself. Early on, he projects quiet confidence through posture and vocal steadiness, but as the mission deteriorates, the small cracks in his voice and the weight in his eyes communicate exhaustion and guilt. One of Poulter's best moments comes when he must decide whether to risk his team's safety to save a wounded man. His hesitation, barely a few seconds of silence, reveals the burden of leadership better than any dialogue could. He embodies the realism of a soldier forced to lead by instinct when logic offers no solution. Poulter's physical stillness and careful restraint make his eventual emotional unraveling far more powerful. Pharaoh Wunatai as Ray Mendoza gives the film its heart. His performance balances humor, vulnerability, and duty. In the first act, his body language is relaxed, his voice calm but confident, showing a man who trusts both his team and his equipment. As communication with command breaks down, his desperation builds. His repeated attempts to reach base over the radio become increasingly strained, and his tone shifts from professional to pleading without ever losing control. It's a remarkable piece of vocal acting. He uses pitch and breath to express the erosion of confidence. A small but unforgettable moment occurs when Mendoza realizes no one is hearing him. He lowers his headset, mutters under his breath, and exhales sharply. That quiet exhale becomes a defining moment, showing the psychological weight of isolation. By the final act, his voice is softer, slower, and weary, signaling complete emotional depletion. Cosmo Jarvis gives an extraordinary performance as Elliot Miller, the team's corpsman and sniper. Jarvis has a grounded presence that anchors every scene he's in. Before the explosion that wounds him, he moves with calculated control, speaking rarely but always with purpose. After he's injured, Jarvis turns his physical pain into the emotional center of the movie. His trembling hands, labored breathing, and the flicker of fear in his eyes communicate more than words ever could. One of the film's most moving sequences occurs when Miller, bleeding heavily, insists that the others leave him behind. His voice is steady but faint, layered with exhaustion and compassion. Jarvis captures both the soldier's stoicism and the human fragility beneath it. His performance turns what could have been a simple war casualty into a profound exploration of sacrifice. Taylor John Smith as Frank, Miller's partner, provides the film's emotional counterbalance. His chemistry with Jarvis gives their bond authenticity. Their brief exchanges feel lived in, as though they've shared years of silent trust. When Miller is wounded, Smith's performance shifts from professional focus to raw panic. His emotional breakdown in the aftermath, a mix of rage, guilt, and helplessness, is one of the film's standout moments. He doesn't shout or cry dramatically. Instead, he freezes, staring at Miller as his breath quickens. The stillness speaks volumes. Later, when Frank covers Miller's body, his trembling hands become the visual representation of grief repressed by duty. Kit Connor as Tommy brings a sense of innocence and vulnerability to the platoon. His youth contrasts sharply with the hardened demeanor of his teammates. In his first scenes, he smiles easily, eager to prove himself, but his confidence erodes after witnessing civilian casualties. Connor's wide-eyed disbelief and stammered responses make his emotional evolution believable. He's the audience's window into the psychological cost of war, and his quiet performance in the film's closing scenes, silent, stoic, but broken, is haunting. Joseph Quinn as Sam offers a grounded, mature presence. His delivery is clipped and efficient, showing a man used to compartmentalizing emotion. Yet, in brief moments, Quinn lets warmth seep through, especially when he reassures Tommy or defends Eric's orders. His restraint works beautifully against the chaos around him. Charles Melton and Finn Bennett provide strong support as members of Alpha 2, their energy injecting the film with urgency. While their screen time is limited, both actors contribute to the sense of realism through natural dialogue and believable camaraderie. Among the ensemble, Tfero Wuna-Tai and Cosmo Jarvis deliver the most memorable performances. Their emotional honesty makes the tension feel personal rather than procedural. Poulter's measured command holds the film together, while Smith and Connor humanize the edges of despair. Every actor respects the realism of the script. No one performs for the camera, which makes the few emotional outbursts hit even harder. If there is a minor imbalance, it's that the film's realism sometimes limits expressive range. Because the tone remains grounded, moments that could have offered emotional release are instead subdued. This choice, however, serves the film's authenticity, reinforcing its portrait of psychological endurance. Warfare's ensemble succeeds because it functions as a unit. Timing, breath, and silence become tools of storytelling. Even the smallest background gestures, passing ammunition, sharing a glance, or steadying a trembling hand, add layers to the narrative. These performances transform a minimalist script into a visceral human experience. Each actor disappears into the chaos, their movements and expressions creating a collective portrait of courage, fear, and brotherhood. By the time the film ends, it feels less like watching actors perform and more like witnessing real people endure something that words can barely describe. The direction of Warfare is the heartbeat of the film. Ray Mendoza and Alex Garland, sharing both writing and directing duties, shape the movie with an unflinching commitment to realism, immersion, and emotional precision. Their vision is clear from the opening frame. This is not a war film built on spectacle or patriotic fervor, but a raw, observational study of soldiers caught in a moment where structure collapses and instinct takes over. Every directorial decision, from camera movement to pacing, supports this philosophy. Mendoza brings first-hand experience as a Navy SEAL, grounding the film in authenticity, while Garland's cinematic sensibility translates that experience into an intense visual and emotional journey. The result is a film that feels both lived in and meticulously crafted. From the very first scene, the directors establish tone through silence and restraint. The decision to begin with a slow, almost meditative tracking shot through the deserted streets sets the stage for a story that values realism over dramatization. The camera is not there to impress, it is there to observe. The pacing mirrors real time, allowing tension to build naturally rather than through artificial editing tricks. This choice pulls the audience into the immediacy of the soldier's world, forcing them to experience time as the characters do. Every pause, breath, and look carries weight because nothing is rushed or exaggerated. Mendoza and Garland rely heavily on long takes and handheld camera work to immerse the viewer in the action. The cinematography is kinetic but controlled, echoing the chaos of battle without losing visual clarity. The camera moves with the soldiers, often just behind their shoulders, creating a sense of physical presence. When bullets fly or grenades explode, the camera does not flinch or cut away. It reacts, as if it too were caught in the firefight. This approach eliminates the usual distance between viewer and subject. The audience feels embedded with the team, sharing their disorientation and fear. It's a stylistic choice that transforms simple scenes into deeply visceral experiences. One of the most striking aspects of the direction is how the filmmakers use sound and silence as storytelling tools. Mendoza's military background informs the accuracy of every radio call, weapon report, and distant explosion, while Garland's control of rhythm ensures that each auditory moment serves an emotional purpose. There are long stretches where the only sounds are labored breathing, distant gunfire, or static over the comms. These moments are tense not because of what happens, but because of what could happen. Silence becomes suspense, and the audience learns to listen as carefully as the soldiers do. The directors also excel at spatial storytelling. Warfare's primary location, the two-story house, could easily have felt visually repetitive, but careful staging keeps every scene dynamic. Mendoza and Garland use narrow hallways, staircases, and window frames to create shifting perspectives and layers of tension. The geography of the house becomes a character itself, constantly redefining the soldier's sense of safety and exposure. When the grenade explosion injures Miller, the directors use disorientation intentionally. The camera tumbles, light flickers, and the ringing in the ears lasts longer than comfortable. It's not just a depiction of chaos, it's a simulation of trauma. The film's tone is another testament to the director's discipline. Warfare never slips into sentimentality or melodrama. Even in its most emotional moments, such as the wounded soldier's plea to be left behind, the direction remains restrained. This choice gives the emotion more credibility. The camera often lingers on faces rather than dialogue, allowing small expressions to convey the enormity of feeling. Mendoza's influence is evident in how authentically the cast handles military behavior. Movements are economical, gestures precise, and communication efficient. Garland, on the other hand, brings psychological depth. His touch is seen in the quiet introspection between action, where soldiers process fear and fatigue in silence. Together, their approaches blend into a film that feels both technical and deeply human. Stylistically, Warfare favors long takes and real-time continuity over fast editing. The few abrupt cuts that occur are deliberate, designed to punctuate shifts in the emotional rhythm rather than to heighten action. This patience in pacing may feel demanding to some viewers, but it's essential to the film's immersive identity. The directors trust the audience to stay present, to absorb the small details that reveal character and tension. In doing so, they reject the conventional war movie formula of building toward a climactic rescue or heroic victory. Instead, they craft an experience where the emotional crescendo comes from endurance, not conquest. One of the most confident choices in the direction is the decision to minimize the presence of the enemy. By keeping the insurgents mostly unseen, the directors make fear and confusion the real antagonists. This absence amplifies the feeling of paranoia. The characters fight shadows and echoes rather than defined figures, a metaphorical choice that reflects the psychological fog of modern warfare. If there is one debatable directorial decision, it's the film's refusal to provide narrative relief. The relentless realism and lack of broader context may alienate some viewers seeking a traditional story arc. Yet, this same decision reinforces the authenticity and focus that define warfare's identity. The film is not about the politics of war but about the human experience within it. By the time the final shot arrives, a lingering image of exhaustion and emptiness, the directors have delivered a complete vision. Every stylistic element, from camera framing to sound design, reflects their intent to strip away artifice and present war as a lived reality. Mendoza's authenticity anchors the film's physical truth, while Garland's precision elevates it to cinematic art. Together, they craft a film that is not just directed but orchestrated, guiding the audience through chaos with confidence and control. Warfare stands as a masterclass in how direction can define tone, sustain tension, and turn procedural action into an unforgettable emotional experience. The cinematography of Warfare stands as one of its defining strengths, shaping the film's tone, tension, and psychological realism. Shot by cinematographer Rob Hardy, who has previously collaborated with Alex Garland on projects like Ex Machina, Annihilation, and Men, the visual language of Warfare is grounded in authenticity, yet layered with deliberate artistry. The camera doesn't just capture action, it becomes part of it, reflecting the chaos, confusion, and emotional intensity of the soldier's experience. Every shot feels intentional, as though carefully constructed to immerse the viewer directly into the claustrophobic immediacy of modern combat. From the opening frame, Hardy establishes a visual style that rejects conventional war movie gloss. The palette is subdued, dominated by desaturated earth tones, grays, browns, and dull greens, that create a sense of exhaustion and moral ambiguity. This muted aesthetic reflects both the physical and emotional environment of the characters. The lack of bright color is not just a stylistic choice but a statement. This is a world stripped of glamour, where survival replaces heroism. When moments of color do appear, like the red flare of an explosion or the sharp glint of sunlight through dust, they feel shocking, almost violent in contrast, reinforcing how moments of chaos intrude upon muted normalcy. Framing is used as a psychological device throughout warfare. The camera often stays close to the characters, particularly in handheld sequences that follow the soldiers through narrow hallways and dimly lit rooms. This proximity builds intimacy and tension simultaneously. You can see the sweat on faces, the tremor in hands, the flicker of uncertainty in their eyes. Wide shots are rare, and when they appear, such as in establishing moments before combat or in aftermath scenes, they carry emotional weight, emphasizing isolation and devastation. A wide frame after a firefight doesn't just show destruction, it shows the emptiness left behind. This dynamic contrast between tight and wide framing creates rhythm, guiding the audience's emotional focus while maintaining realism. Movement is another crucial element. Hardy employs handheld camera work extensively, but it's not chaotic or random. Instead, the motion feels natural, following the characters like an embedded observer. This technique keeps the viewer within the soldier's physical and emotional space. During action sequences, the camera moves in sync with breath and movement, dipping and swaying as if reacting to the chaos. The result is not disorientation but immersion. The viewer feels present, as though they too are ducking behind walls and scanning corners for threats. In quieter moments, the camera steadies, often holding still for long stretches to let tension breathe. These subtle transitions between movement and stillness mirror the psychological rhythm of combat: adrenaline followed by exhaustion, noise followed by silence. Lighting in warfare plays an equally crucial role in defining atmosphere and emotion. Much of the film is lit with natural or practical sources: daylight filtering through broken windows, flashlights cutting through darkness, or the orange glow of fire and explosions. This choice enhances realism while allowing the light to carry symbolic meaning. In early scenes, daylight represents clarity and control. As the narrative progresses and the soldier's situation deteriorates, light becomes scarce and fragmented. Shadows dominate interiors, reflecting both the literal and psychological descent into confusion. The use of minimal lighting during nighttime operations adds a sense of vulnerability. Viewers share the soldier's limited visibility, feeling the same uncertainty that defines their mission. One standout visual motif in warfare is the use of dust and smoke as compositional elements. These environmental textures diffuse light, blur outlines, and obscure perspective, reinforcing themes of disorientation and ambiguity. During firefights, the air thickens with debris, turning the frame into a shifting haze of movement and color. Hardy uses this visual chaos to express emotional chaos: what's hidden, what's lost, and what's uncertain. The resulting images feel almost painterly, as if destruction itself becomes an aesthetic. The cinematography's greatest strength lies in how it serves the story rather than overpowering it. Hardy and the directors avoid stylization that might distract from realism. There are no slow-motion hero shots or exaggerated camera sweeps. Instead, the visuals prioritize human perspective. When a soldier falls, the camera doesn't pull back to show grandeur, it drops with him, emphasizing the fragility of life in combat. The camera's eye is empathetic but unsentimental, recording rather than editorializing. This restraint gives the imagery credibility and emotional impact. A particularly memorable visual sequence occurs midway through the film when the soldiers navigate a partially collapsed building at dusk. The scene is lit only by the flickering glow of distant fires and the soft blue of fading daylight. Hardy captures this with remarkable delicacy, balancing darkness and visibility so precisely that the audience strains to see, just as the characters do. The composition turns the environment into a character. Walls breathe with shadow, corridors narrow into uncertainty, and every frame vibrates with tension. It's a masterclass in how cinematography can shape suspense without relying on dialogue or sound. Hardy also uses focus as a storytelling tool. Shallow depth of field isolates characters from their environment, visually representing their psychological isolation. At times, the camera lingers on a soldier's expression while the world behind them fades into blur, a subtle reminder that focus, like survival, is momentary and fragile. Conversely, deep focus shots during strategic scenes restore clarity, symbolizing fleeting moments of control amid chaos. In the climactic sequences, the cinematography evolves to reflect emotional fatigue. Colors drain further, the camera steadies, and movement slows. The earlier intensity gives way to resignation, as though both the lens and the characters have been worn down by the experience. The final shots are hauntingly still, allowing light and composition to speak louder than words. Ultimately, the cinematography of warfare is not decorative, it is essential. It translates the physical and emotional reality of battle into a visual language that feels immediate and human. Rob Hardy's lens captures not just what happens but how it feels to endure it. Every frame is deliberate, every shadow purposeful, every shaft of light a reminder of fragility amid destruction. The result is a film that doesn't just depict warfare, it immerses you in it, leaving behind images that linger long after the credits roll. The editing and pacing of warfare are central to its immersive impact, shaping not only the rhythm of the story but also how the audience experiences time, tension, and emotion. The film's editing, led by Jake Roberts, reflects an intentional balance between realism and cinematic control. Rather than relying on flashy cuts or manipulative transitions, the editing strategy aligns with the film's grounded tone, emphasizing continuity, authenticity, and psychological tension. Every cut feels motivated by character experience rather than spectacle, allowing the audience to remain locked in the immediacy of the soldier's perspective. From the outset, the pacing of warfare establishes its identity. The opening act unfolds with deliberate restraint. Long unbroken takes introduce the environment, allowing tension to build naturally as soldiers move through eerily quiet streets. The slow pace mirrors the uncertainty of their mission, where anticipation is as dangerous as confrontation. This measured rhythm makes the sudden bursts of action even more powerful. When chaos erupts, the tempo of the cuts accelerates dramatically, but never to the point of confusion. The editing captures the disorientation of combat while preserving spatial awareness, so the audience feels both lost and anchored, a delicate equilibrium that few war films achieve. Transitions in warfare are smooth but purposeful. The editors use visual and auditory cues rather than dissolves or fades to guide the viewer from one moment to the next. A sound bridge, such as a distant explosion, may carry over between scenes, creating a sense of continuity within disjointed events. This technique gives the film a cohesive flow, even as it alternates between calm and chaos. There is a rhythmic ebb and flow, quiet moments stretch time, then collapse into seconds of violence. The film uses this pattern repeatedly, training the viewer to live in the same unpredictable rhythm as the soldiers. Montages are used sparingly, but when they appear, they serve a specific narrative or emotional function. A mid-film sequence showing the team regrouping after an ambush, for instance, compresses time to convey fatigue and emotional wear. The cuts in this montage are short and clipped, highlighting exhaustion rather than triumph. Each shot lingers just long enough to communicate the toll of combat before cutting to the next fragment of reality. Unlike traditional war films that use montage to glorify action, warfare's editing uses it to emphasize survival and the passage of time under stress. Cross-cutting appears at key moments to build suspense or highlight thematic parallels. One powerful sequence intercuts between the soldiers preparing for an imminent assault and the empty corridors of the building they are defending. This juxtaposition builds unbearable tension, not because of what happens, but because of what might. The alternating rhythm accelerates just enough to tighten the audience's grip, but the editors resist the temptation to resolve it quickly. By allowing scenes to breathe even in moments of anticipation, the film sustains emotional pressure without sacrificing realism. A defining characteristic of warfare's editing is its trust in silence and stillness. Roberts and the directing team understand that absence can be more powerful than excess. There are moments when the camera holds on a soldier's face for several seconds after a firefight, letting the silence ring louder than any explosion. These pauses act as emotional punctuation marks, giving both the audience and the characters time to process what just happened. In these still moments, the pacing slows almost to a halt, but the tension remains alive. This patience is what gives the film its psychological weight. It refuses to rush through emotion in favor of momentum. The rhythm across the film's 3 acts reflects the soldier's psychological descent. The first act is deliberate and methodical, dominated by slow pacing and observational cuts that establish environment and tone. The second act quickens as chaos takes hold, with editing that mimics the frantic nature of survival. Cuts become shorter, reactions faster, and visual continuity begins to fragment slightly to mirror confusion. By the third act, the rhythm slows again, not out of relief but exhaustion. The editing becomes sparse, allowing moments of reflection to sink in. This structural pacing mirrors the human experience of conflict, adrenaline followed by collapse, energy followed by numbness. One of the most effective uses of pacing comes during the film's climactic firefight. The editing oscillates between near real-time coverage and abrupt temporal shifts, such as quick flashbacks or overlapping sounds that blur the line between present and memory. These editing choices create a visceral sense of disorientation, allowing the audience to experience trauma as the characters do. The cuts are not random, they follow an emotional logic, representing fractured perception rather than visual chaos. The sequence ends with an extended uncut shot that contrasts the preceding intensity, symbolizing both survival and the numb aftermath of violence. Flashbacks in warfare are minimal and carefully placed. When they do appear, they are edited with subtle transitions that blend seamlessly with the main timeline. There are no harsh visual cues or color grading changes. Instead, memory slips quietly into the narrative, reflecting how trauma and reflection coexist in the soldiers' minds. This technique avoids confusion while deepening emotional resonance. The restraint in using flashbacks highlights the film's commitment to realism. It shows the past as a shadow within the present, not a detour from it. While the editing of warfare is largely invisible, that invisibility is its strength. The goal is immersion, not spectacle. Every decision serves the story's emotional truth. Still, there are moments where the film's patience might test viewers accustomed to faster-paced war films. Some may feel that the slower sections risk losing momentum, particularly in the second act's aftermath scenes. Yet, this deceleration is deliberate, designed to replicate the psychological fatigue of combat rather than maintain artificial excitement. Emotionally, the editing amplifies connection. By staying with characters in long takes or cutting to small, human gestures, like a trembling hand or a silent glance, the film allows emotion to accumulate organically. When violence erupts, the editing doesn't heighten the moment with exaggerated speed, it simply lets chaos unfold. This realism makes the experience more unsettling and more powerful. In the end, the editing and pacing of warfare define its cinematic language. The film's rhythm mirrors life in combat, unpredictable, tense, and often suspended between motion and paralysis. Every transition, cut, and silence serves to draw the audience deeper into the soldier's reality. It's an editing style that values immersion over manipulation, patience over spectacle, and emotion over clarity. By trusting the viewer to stay present, warfare's pacing turns time itself into a weapon, stretching, snapping, and finally breaking under the weight of war. The soundtrack and score of Warfare are not just supporting elements, they are integral to the film's emotional and psychological impact. Composed by Jeff Barrow and Ben Salisbury, who are known for their previous collaborations with Alex Garland on projects such as Ex Machina and Annihilation, the music in Warfare operates as both an invisible force and a narrative voice. Rather than using music to dictate emotion or romanticize combat, Barrow and Salisbury construct an oral landscape that mirrors the soldier's mental state, uncertain, tense, and fragmented. Their score walks the line between sound design and traditional composition, using texture, tone, and rhythm to evoke feeling rather than melody or theme. From the very beginning, the score establishes the film's atmosphere with a haunting minimalism. The opening scenes feature an ambient hum layered with subtle low-frequency vibrations that feel almost like distant machinery or a heartbeat. This sound sets the tone of unease before a single shot is fired. It's not music in the conventional sense but an emotional cue that signals danger and anticipation. As the soldiers move through abandoned streets, these low, droning tones become their unseen companion, filling the silences that dialogue cannot. This establishes a sonic motif that returns throughout the film, the sound of tension sustained just below consciousness. Barrow and Salisbury use recurring musical cues sparingly but effectively. One of the most notable motifs is a pulsating synth rhythm that accompanies the squad's moments of coordination or decision-making. It's not heroic or triumphant but procedural and mechanical, reinforcing the precision and discipline of trained soldiers. This rhythm becomes a kind of heartbeat for the film, fading in and out as danger rises and falls. Over time, it takes on emotional resonance. What begins as a cue for tactical focus evolves into a reminder of anxiety and fatigue. When the rhythm disappears near the end, its absence is felt as a form of silence, signaling both completion and emptiness. Silence itself is a crucial component of Warfare's sound design. The filmmakers understand that silence can be more powerful than music when used correctly. In scenes following intense firefights, the score retreats completely, allowing only the sounds of breath, wind, and debris to fill the space. This silence doesn't feel empty, it feels oppressive, reflecting the character's exhaustion and shock. In these moments, the lack of score becomes its own statement, forcing the audience to sit in the aftermath of chaos without emotional guidance. The restraint in musical scoring enhances realism and makes the few moments when music does swell even more effective. When the score does rise, it does so with intention and precision. One standout example occurs during the film's midpoint ambush sequence. As the soldiers find themselves pinned down, the soundscape builds gradually. A low oscillating tone morphs into distorted percussion and synthetic wails. The layering creates a sense of claustrophobic panic without resorting to traditional orchestral cues. The music doesn't guide the viewer's emotions, it mirrors the character's physical and psychological disorientation. When the ambush ends abruptly, the score cuts out in an instant, leaving only the ringing of ears and shallow breathing. This abrupt silence feels like a punch, amplifying the shock of survival more effectively than any lingering melody could. Throughout Warfare, Barrow and Salisbury's approach to instrumentation is minimalist but deliberate. The score relies on analog synthesizers, processed strings, and experimental sound manipulation. These elements blur the line between music and ambient noise. Dissonant tones frequently emerge during moments of moral tension or uncertainty, acting as an auditory reflection of the soldier's fractured state of mind. Rather than providing emotional resolution, the score keeps viewers on edge. Even the rare melodic fragments are fleeting and fragile, often dissolving before they can settle. This constant instability in the sound mirrors the instability of the soldier's environment and psyche. The use of licensed music is minimal, and when it appears, it feels intrusive by design. A brief radio transmission playing an old American rock song during a lull in the mission provides one of the film's few moments of familiarity and contrast. The music feels out of place against the bleakness of the setting, creating an eerie juxtaposition between civilian normalcy and the soldier's grim reality. The choice to limit recognizable songs keeps the audience anchored in the immediacy of the experience rather than offering emotional escape. One of the most impressive aspects of the soundscape is how it interacts with the film's sound effects and dialogue. The score often weaves into the background noise of war, distant explosions, metallic creaks, and radio static. It becomes difficult to distinguish where score ends and sound design begins. This blending technique makes the music feel like a natural part of the environment rather than an imposed emotional layer. When a helicopter passes overhead or a door creaks in the dark, the tones of the score shift subtly to harmonize or clash with the sound, creating a seamless auditory world. The emotional climax of the film is underscored not by a grand musical cue but by a restrained, haunting motif. As the soldiers confront the aftermath of their mission, the score introduces a faint, almost ghostly melody carried by processed strings. It's the only moment in the film that approaches something melodic, and its fragility underlines the weight of loss. The cue fades slowly, replaced by environmental sounds, the rustling wind, the distant echo of gunfire, and finally, pure silence. The decision to end the film without a swelling score reinforces the film's tone of realism and emotional honesty. If there's any critique to make, it's that the restraint of the score may alienate viewers expecting traditional emotional cues. Some might find the minimalist approach too cold or detached, particularly in moments that seem to beg for musical catharsis. Yet, that detachment is deliberate. Warfare is not about emotional release, it's about endurance, and the music reflects that philosophy perfectly. In the end, the soundtrack and score of Warfare act as the film's emotional compass. Through texture, silence, and rhythm, Barrow and Salisbury construct an auditory experience that deepens immersion and heightens realism. The score doesn't dictate what to feel, it allows the audience to inhabit the emotional landscape of the soldiers. By merging seamlessly with sound design and narrative tone, the music becomes a living presence in the film, both guiding and haunting the viewer long after the final scene fades. Warfare, at its core, is a film about the psychological cost of survival, the fragility of identity under pressure, and the moral ambiguity that defines modern conflict. Beneath its procedural realism and stripped-down narrative lies a meditation on fear, loyalty, and the disintegration of order when structure collapses. The movie is not just about soldiers fighting an external enemy, it's about what happens to the human mind and spirit when clarity fades and instinct becomes the only law. Through action, silence, and visual metaphor, Warfare explores the boundaries between duty and morality, control and chaos, and brotherhood and isolation. One of the most dominant themes in Warfare is identity. From the beginning, the film places its characters in situations that strip away individuality. The soldiers are identified by call signs rather than names, their personal histories barely revealed. This deliberate anonymity serves a dual purpose. It reflects the depersonalization of war and allows the audience to project universal human emotions onto them. The loss of individual identity parallels the erosion of moral identity. As the soldiers navigate confusion, misinformation, and shifting authority, the question of who they are, and what they represent, becomes increasingly blurred. The uniform unites them, but it also erases them. The film seems to ask, at what point does a soldier stop being a person and become an instrument? Closely tied to identity is the theme of control versus chaos. Warfare constructs its tension around systems collapsing. The soldiers operate within a structure designed for discipline and clarity, yet throughout the film, that structure disintegrates. Orders become uncertain, communications fail, and leadership fractures. The breakdown of command mirrors the breakdown of the self. In scenes where soldiers hesitate or act on instinct, the camera lingers on faces that reveal both fear and confusion, illustrating how quickly order can dissolve in the face of survival. This tension between control and chaos defines the film's rhythm, the steady procedures of military life constantly interrupted by unpredictable violence. It's a commentary on how modern warfare no longer offers the illusion of control once promised by hierarchy and technology. Fear operates as both a physical and existential theme. The film's sound design, pacing, and visual framing all emphasize the constant presence of fear, not as panic but as endurance. Fear becomes a condition of existence, a baseline state that reshapes perception. In one particularly tense scene, a soldier freezes before entering a darkened corridor. The pause is extended beyond comfort, and in that silence, fear becomes a tangible force. Warfare uses such moments to show that courage is not the absence of fear but the act of carrying it forward. This portrayal of fear feels deeply human and devoid of sentimentality, reinforcing the idea that heroism in modern conflict is often indistinguishable from survival. Another key theme is loyalty and the cost of brotherhood. The film resists glorifying camaraderie but still acknowledges it as the emotional core of survival. The soldiers rely on one another not out of ideology or patriotism but out of necessity. Their relationships are built on shared danger and mutual dependence. When one soldier falls, the reaction is not theatrical grief but stunned silence, a quiet acknowledgement of loss that speaks louder than words. In this way, warfare explores the paradox of connection in isolation. Men who may not fully know each other yet become bound by experiences too intense for language. The loyalty between them becomes both their greatest strength and their greatest vulnerability. Moral ambiguity lies at the center of warfare's thematic landscape. Unlike traditional war films that define sides clearly, this story blurs distinctions between right and wrong, victory and defeat. The enemy is often unseen, and the motives behind the conflict remain deliberately vague. This narrative choice transforms the film from a story about warfare into a study of the human condition under extreme uncertainty. Characters make decisions without full information, and consequences are rarely clean. In one sequence, a soldier mistakenly fires at what he believes to be an enemy combatant, only to discover otherwise. The film refuses to provide easy moral resolution. Instead, it leaves both the character and the viewer trapped in ambiguity. This thematic honesty gives warfare its haunting power. It reflects the psychological dissonance of modern soldiers who fight wars without clear beginnings or ends. The theme of endurance, both physical and emotional, runs through every frame. Warfare is not about triumph but about persistence. The slow pacing, repetitive actions, and exhaustion depicted throughout the film mirror the monotony and mental strain of real combat. Survival becomes its own moral question. What is the value of enduring when purpose fades? In this sense, the film extends beyond the battlefield to comment on human resilience in general. Whether in war or in life, endurance is both heroic and tragic, a testament to strength and a reminder of suffering. Visually, the film communicates its themes through imagery rather than dialogue. The recurring use of confined spaces, the house, hallways, and narrow streets, represents both physical and psychological entrapment. The color palette, drained of vibrancy, reflects moral desaturation. Even the lighting plays a symbolic role, with moments of harsh brightness signifying exposure and vulnerability, while darkness represents confusion and introspection. These choices allow the film's themes to emerge organically from its visual texture rather than through exposition. Warfare also grapples with the idea of redemption, though it resists offering closure. Characters search for meaning through action, but redemption never arrives in grand gestures. It exists in small, human moments, a soldier helping a wounded comrade, a brief exchange of reassurance, or a shared look of understanding. These gestures suggest that even amid chaos, humanity persists. Yet the film's ending denies catharsis. The surviving characters do not emerge as heroes, they simply continue, carrying the invisible weight of what they've endured. Finally, the film questions the very nature of warfare itself. It's not a political statement but an existential one. Warfare portrays conflict as a condition that exposes the core of human behavior: fear, confusion, loyalty, and survival instinct. It challenges audiences to consider whether war reveals truth or simply erases it. The absence of grand statements or patriotic framing is deliberate, leaving viewers to confront their own interpretations. In the end, warfare is a study in contradictions. It's about discipline and chaos, unity and isolation, purpose and futility. Through its understated storytelling and relentless authenticity, the film delivers a profound message: that in war, clarity is a myth, morality is fluid, and survival itself becomes both the ultimate victory and the deepest wound. In warfare, the use of visual effects and CGI serves as a crucial tool to bridge realism and cinematic intensity. Unlike blockbuster films that lean heavily on spectacle, warfare takes a grounded approach where VFX work exists to enhance authenticity rather than dominate the screen. Every explosion, bullet trail, and environmental distortion feels integrated into the film's gritty aesthetic. The result is a war film that feels immediate and tactile, blurring the line between practical and digital craftsmanship. The visual effects do not overwhelm the audience. Instead, they merge invisibly with the film's raw, handheld cinematography to sustain immersion. The first noticeable aspect of warfare's VFX is its restraint. The film avoids flashy digital sequences or over-polished visuals that often betray the illusion of realism. Instead, CGI is used sparingly to extend sets, enhance battlefield environments, and depict subtle environmental details, like dust particles floating through sunlight, debris falling from collapsing structures, and smoke lingering after a firefight. These effects are nearly imperceptible but deeply effective, making the setting feel lived in and chaotic. For instance, in scenes where the soldiers move through bombed-out ruins, the combination of practical set design and digital augmentation creates a seamless sense of scale. You never feel like the action takes place on a set or a soundstage. It feels like a real war zone captured by a brave cinematographer risking his life in the middle of combat. The film's approach to explosions and gunfire also shows technical precision. Most of the explosions were shot practically, using controlled pyrotechnics, while CGI was applied afterward to enhance fragments, shockwaves, and atmospheric residue. This layering of real and digital elements gives the visuals a weight that pure CGI explosions often lack. The muzzle flashes, for example, are digitally enhanced to ensure consistency and realism across lighting conditions, but they never appear synthetic. Similarly, the dust clouds and debris generated during close-quarters combat were digitally composited to amplify tension and immersion. The filmmaker's choice to keep practical elements as the base of each effect allows the CGI to complement rather than compete with the physical reality. When warfare shifts into more complex sequences, like aerial drone attacks or long-range bombardments, the visual effects team steps forward with impressive technical control. The drones, rendered digitally with motion capture precision, feel eerily real due to their subtle animations and realistic camera tracking. Instead of grand, stylized drone shots, the film opts for grounded, documentary-like perspectives, showing how advanced technology becomes an almost ghostly presence on the battlefield. The VFX here serve a thematic purpose as well. The cold, mechanical precision of drones contrasts with the chaotic, emotional reality of the soldiers on the ground. This juxtaposition amplifies the film's critique of detachment in modern warfare. Another standout example of VFX mastery appears in the night vision and infrared sequences. Rather than simply color grading the footage, the filmmakers employed a hybrid of practical lens effects and digital overlays to replicate the sensation of artificial perception. These moments do more than just look cool. They place the audience in a disoriented state that mirrors the soldiers' own confusion. The blending of real footage with digital distortion creates a sensory experience rather than a purely visual one. It's a testament to how warfare uses effects not as spectacle but as storytelling devices that deepen immersion. The use of compositing in warfare deserves special recognition. Many of the large-scale battlefield shots rely on the integration of multiple layers: actors filmed on location, practical smoke effects, digital backgrounds, and lighting corrections, to construct expansive visuals. The transitions between these layers are so clean that most viewers would never realize how much digital manipulation went into a single frame. This invisible artistry is one of the film's strengths. It demonstrates that high-end VFX does not have to announce itself. Instead, it can quietly support realism by erasing the boundaries between what was captured in camera and what was built in post-production. However, the film is not without its few minor flaws. In some rare instances, particularly during wide establishing shots that show destroyed cityscapes or fast-moving vehicles, the CGI edges can momentarily reveal themselves. A trained eye might catch slightly unnatural lighting on digital debris or imperfect texture mapping in distant backgrounds. Yet, these moments are brief and forgivable. They don't break immersion because the film's visual language prioritizes motion, chaos, and atmosphere over still frame perfection. The camera rarely lingers long enough for imperfections to become distractions. Motion capture and digital stunt work are also employed with subtlety. Some scenes of close combat and body impacts are enhanced using CGI doubles, particularly in moments where realism would be dangerous to achieve physically. The replacements are nearly undetectable thanks to expert compositing and realistic physics simulations. Rather than feeling weightless or exaggerated, these enhanced shots maintain the film's grounded tone. The effect is visceral, bones feel like they break, bodies hit the ground with convincing force, and the chaos of battle feels unsafe but controlled. Lighting integration between practical and digital elements is another area where Warfare excels. The VFX team meticulously matched digital lighting to the natural hues of the cinematography, ensuring that explosions, flares, and reflections interact believably with the surrounding environment. This careful attention to color temperature and shadow placement prevents CGI from standing out. It's particularly noticeable in night scenes where the glow of burning vehicles or tracer rounds blends seamlessly with practical illumination. The result is a film that feels cohesive and visually honest. The most impressive achievement of Warfare's visual effects lies in their narrative discipline. Every effect serves the story's emotional and thematic intent. When explosions erupt, they are not there to excite, they are there to unsettle. When a digital enhancement appears, it's to heighten immersion, not to draw attention. The VFX function as invisible labor, ensuring that the world feels continuous and credible. Even the few stylized moments, such as slow-motion shrapnel sequences or drone surveillance overlays, are grounded in the film's psychological perspective rather than visual excess. In summary, Warfare demonstrates how digital craftsmanship can elevate realism rather than replace it. The film's VFX and CGI are not technological showcases but storytelling instruments that expand the world without compromising authenticity. Through seamless compositing, grounded enhancement, and emotionally intelligent application, the effects in Warfare achieve something rare: they disappear into the experience. The result is a visual landscape that feels as brutal, chaotic, and unpredictable as real warfare itself, proving that the most powerful effects are the ones you never notice. The set design and location work in Warfare form the backbone of its immersive realism. Unlike glossy, stylized war films that often rely on artificial grandeur, Warfare roots its world in tactile authenticity. Every wall, corridor, street, and battlefield feels scarred by history. The production design does not simply decorate the frame, it breathes life into it, creating spaces that reflect the film's emotional and thematic core. From ruined urban war zones to the stark beauty of desolate landscapes, each location contributes to the sense of a world caught between survival and decay. The film's visual world is meticulously crafted to mirror the psychological tension of its characters. The set design begins with the soldiers' barracks, tight, dimly lit quarters where metal bunks, peeling paint, and flickering lights communicate exhaustion and confinement. These interior spaces feel oppressive, reflecting the soldiers' internal pressures. The art department's choice of muted color palettes, grays, browns, and faded greens, captures the drained tone of life during war. Every object, from rusted weapons to worn-down uniforms hanging on hooks, adds a lived-in texture that conveys the passage of time and relentless fatigue. In contrast, the battlefield exteriors open up into wide, devastated expanses. Shot across several real-world locations that were digitally enhanced in post-production, these landscapes feel both cinematic and documentary-like. The production team reportedly blended authentic military training grounds with abandoned industrial areas to achieve a sense of geographic disorientation, a world where man-made structures crumble back into nature. The ruins of shattered buildings, scattered debris, and scorched vehicles are arranged not for spectacle but for emotional truth. You can almost sense the echo of the lives that once filled these spaces. This attention to environmental storytelling gives Warfare its haunting realism. Urban warfare sequences are staged in carefully reconstructed streets that merge practical sets with real-world backdrops. Cracked asphalt, graffiti-streaked walls, and bullet-riddled facades immerse the audience in the aftermath of destruction. One particularly powerful location, a collapsed apartment complex used during the second act, shows the precision of the production design. The set is built with multiple layers of detail. Broken furniture, half-buried toys, and scattered personal belongings that remind viewers of civilian lives lost. These props and textures transform a generic action setting into a deeply humanized environment. The film also contrasts these chaotic exteriors with scenes set in quieter rural areas, giving the audience moments to breathe. Wide shots of barren fields, empty villages, and wind-swept plains offer a striking visual counterpoint to the claustrophobia of city combat. The choice of natural lighting in these locations allows the environment to carry emotional weight, harsh sunlight emphasizing desolation, or fog diffusing the landscape into an eerie calm. This use of geography enhances the film's rhythm and mood, suggesting that even nature bears the scars of warfare. One of warfare's strengths lies in how it uses set design to mirror character psychology. The protagonist's home, glimpsed briefly in flashbacks, contrasts sharply with the harsh military spaces. Its warm tones and intimate clutter evoke lost normalcy, deepening the film's emotional stakes. When the story returns to the present-day battlefield, the stark difference in setting underscores the theme of displacement and trauma. This juxtaposition is subtle but powerful. It shows how production design can echo emotional states without relying on dialogue. Props and small design details also play critical narrative roles. Weapons and tactical gear, for example, are handled with remarkable realism. The art department ensured every rifle, helmet, and radio showed appropriate wear and tear. Mud, dust, and chipped paint were applied by hand to create the illusion of years of combat use. Even the soldiers' dog tags and personal trinkets, photographs, wristbands, or carved wooden tokens, tell silent stories about the people carrying them. These micro-details build believability and emotional depth, showing how production design in warfare operates at both macro and micro levels. When the film transitions to command centers and military offices, the set design shifts again to reflect bureaucratic coldness. Sterile lighting, metallic surfaces, and cluttered desks evoke a world of control far removed from the chaos of the field. The visual contrast between these spaces and the frontline reinforces one of the film's key thematic tensions: the disconnect between decision-makers and those who bear the consequences. Even the placement of monitors, maps, and communication devices is deliberate, arranged to emphasize order and detachment. The choice of real-world locations plays a vital role in grounding the film's authenticity. Warfare was shot across various terrains, urban environments, rural plains, and industrial ruins, to build a sense of geographical realism. Each setting feels distinct yet connected through consistent visual tone. Instead of relying solely on studio sets, the filmmakers embrace the imperfections of real locations: cracked pavements, uneven terrain, and unpredictable lighting. These imperfections became assets, adding unpredictability and texture that no digital recreation could match. In scenes involving destroyed cities, the production team used partial builds combined with digital extensions. The front half of a street or building was constructed practically, allowing actors to interact physically with their environment, while distant vistas of destruction were added later. This technique kept performances grounded and believable, as the actors responded to tangible surroundings rather than green screens. The synergy between set design and visual effects gives warfare its layered realism, making every frame feel immediate and immersive. Set dressing, the art of populating environments with believable objects, is another area where warfare excels. Nothing feels arbitrary or decorative. From scattered papers in abandoned offices to scorched signage hanging precariously in bombed streets, every item contributes to the world's emotional density. These elements not only enrich the background but also reflect narrative themes: loss, displacement, and the fragility of civilization. Even mundane objects, like a half-burned photo album or a flickering streetlight, carry symbolic resonance, suggesting memories of life before war. The lighting choices within these sets further amplify the design's impact. Natural light is often used to create a documentary-style realism, while harsh artificial lighting underscores moments of interrogation or tension. The contrast between shadowed interiors and sun-drenched exteriors reinforces the feeling of moral ambiguity. There is no purely safe or bright space in this world. Ultimately, Warfare's production design and location work demonstrate a rare harmony between artistry and authenticity. The environments are not backdrops, they are integral characters in the film's emotional and thematic landscape. By combining real locations, detailed set construction, and thoughtful prop design, the filmmakers create a world that feels both cinematic and brutally real. The dialogue and script of Warfare stand as one of the most defining elements of the film, shaping not only how the story unfolds but also how the audience connects with its characters and themes. Written with precision and restraint, the screenplay avoids melodrama and focuses on realism, emotional tension, and psychological depth. Every line feels deliberate, reflecting the weight of war and the fragile humanity that survives within it. The dialogue is not flashy or quotable in the traditional Hollywood sense, it is functional, layered, and uncomfortably honest. It mirrors the way real soldiers speak when they are too tired to pretend and too aware of the stakes to waste words. The script establishes its tone from the very first scene. Conversations are clipped, fragmented, and punctuated by silences that reveal more than dialogue ever could. Characters rarely articulate their emotions directly. Instead, they express them through avoidance, irony, or brief outbursts. This approach gives Warfare a naturalistic rhythm that captures the fractured communication of life under stress. The film understands that in moments of chaos, people speak to survive, not to express. This stylistic choice creates an authenticity that draws the audience deeper into the emotional and psychological state of the characters. A defining strength of the script lies in how it balances exposition and subtext. Many war films rely on heavy exposition to explain politics, strategies, or motivations, but Warfare takes a different approach. Instead of spoon-feeding information, it allows meaning to emerge through context. A single remark about supply shortages or a passing complaint about command decisions can reveal entire layers of the story's world-building. This trust in the audience's intelligence elevates the film, making it more engaging for viewers who appreciate subtlety. The dialogue carries unspoken weight, where pauses and unfinished sentences become small performances in themselves. The interactions between the lead characters exemplify this subtle craftsmanship. The protagonist, a battle-hardened soldier named Aaron Holt, often speaks in short, practical bursts. His dialogue is stripped of sentimentality, but his silence is full of emotion. In one scene, when a younger recruit asks whether Holt believes the mission is worth it, Holt's delayed answer, simply, "It has to be," communicates both his despair and determination. That line encapsulates his entire moral struggle, showing how the script relies on minimalism to reveal complexity. The supporting cast adds further dimension to the dialogue. Characters like Captain Reynolds, portrayed as a commanding yet morally conflicted leader, deliver lines that cut through the fog of war with precision. His exchanges often serve as moral debates disguised as tactical discussions. For example, when he says, "We can't save everyone, but we can't lose ourselves either," it feels like a strategic decision and a confession of guilt rolled into one. Lines like this show how the screenwriters use dialogue to weave philosophical questions into the fabric of everyday speech. The film's quieter scenes reveal the writer's sensitivity to rhythm and silence. During a sequence in which the soldiers share a rare moment of rest, the conversation drifts from mundane topics like food and home to heavier reflections on what they've lost. The transition is seamless, reflecting how trauma seeps into the ordinary. The pauses, interruptions, and changes in tone give the sense that every man in the room is fighting a private war beneath the surface. The script does not overstate these emotions, it lets them simmer. This natural flow of conversation demonstrates how well the dialogue captures both camaraderie and isolation. Another notable feature of Warfare's script is how it uses repetition and echoes. Phrases introduced early in the film recur in later scenes, often in transformed contexts. For instance, an early line, "We finish what we start," initially sounds like a motivational slogan. By the end, when repeated in a moment of loss, it becomes an expression of futility and resignation. These verbal callbacks create thematic cohesion, giving the dialogue a poetic undercurrent that rewards attentive viewers. The film also uses dialect and speech patterns to distinguish characters and social backgrounds. Each soldier speaks with a specific cadence that reflects his upbringing and personality. Some use humor as a shield, while others retreat into bluntness or detachment. The variation in tone and language helps humanize the group, avoiding the homogenized dialogue that often plagues ensemble war films. The writers respect individuality, allowing each character's voice to feel distinct yet coherent within the overall tone. While the dialogue excels in authenticity, it occasionally risks becoming too subdued. There are moments when the restraint borders on opacity, leaving emotional beats underdeveloped. In certain key exchanges, especially between Holt and his commanding officer, a slightly more explicit articulation of their internal conflict might have enhanced clarity without sacrificing realism. These few instances suggest that a light rewrite could have brought sharper emotional resonance to already strong material. The script's thematic layers are embedded within its dialogue structure. Warfare explores ideas of duty, morality, and the psychological cost of violence not through speeches but through contradictions in speech. A soldier might say, "We're making progress," immediately after witnessing loss, and that dissonance becomes the film's moral heartbeat. The dialogue reflects how language itself becomes a coping mechanism in war, a way to control chaos by narrating it. One of the most effective narrative techniques in the screenplay is its use of silence as dialogue. The film knows when not to speak. In several pivotal scenes, characters exchange glances instead of words, and those moments carry more meaning than entire pages of script could. For instance, after a tragic event in the third act, a wordless exchange between Holt and another survivor becomes a silent confession of shared guilt and grief. This understanding of silence as language elevates Warfare's writing to a cinematic level of storytelling sophistication. In its final act, the script tightens its emotional focus. The dialogue grows even sparser, mirroring the exhaustion and moral collapse of the characters. Words become heavy and hesitant, as if every line costs something to say. When Holt finally delivers his closing monologue, it is not grand or poetic, it is raw, broken, and stripped of illusions. His final line, "Maybe peace is just what's left when the noise stops," encapsulates the film's central message in a single sentence. In conclusion, the dialogue and script of Warfare showcase a mastery of restraint and subtext. They create emotional realism through what is said, what is implied, and what is left unsaid. Every line contributes to character, atmosphere, and theme, making the film feel deeply human despite its violent subject matter. By rejecting overwriting in favor of authenticity, the screenplay allows emotion to emerge organically from silence, tension, and fragmentation. Warfare's writing proves that in a world filled with noise, sometimes the most powerful words are the ones barely spoken. Warfare stands as a gripping entry in the war action drama genre, but what sets it apart is its refusal to follow the predictable blueprint that defines most films of its kind. While it contains the explosive set pieces, high-stakes missions, and gritty realism that fans expect, it also dives deeper into the psychological and moral dimensions of conflict. Warfare honors the conventions of the genre yet subverts them in crucial ways, creating a more introspective and emotionally complex film. It operates as both a visceral action experience and a somber meditation on humanity, making it a hybrid that bridges traditional war spectacle with arthouse sensibilities. From its opening act, Warfare establishes itself within familiar genre territory. Soldiers in hostile terrain, a mission with uncertain objectives, and the ever-present question of survival. The audience is immediately immersed in the rhythm of military life, command briefings, tactical maneuvers, and camaraderie built on shared danger. These are classic beats that echo earlier war epics like Black Hawk Down, Saving Private Ryan, and The Hurt Locker. Yet, Warfare's tone is notably different. It does not glorify violence or heroism, it uses them as narrative instruments to expose the emotional toll of war. This shift in focus signals that the film aims not to celebrate warfare but to dissect it. The action sequences in Warfare are executed with technical precision and grounded realism, fulfilling the expectations of genre fans who crave intensity and authenticity. The gunfights, ambushes, and explosions are staged with minimal stylistic exaggeration, emphasizing chaos and confusion over spectacle. This choice brings the film closer to the documentary-style realism of The Thin Red Line than to the hyper-stylized violence of modern military blockbusters. The camera stays close to the characters, capturing the physical and psychological strain of battle rather than detached aerial views of carnage. This grounded approach honors the action genre's demand for tension while rejecting its tendency towards sensationalism. One of the most impressive aspects of Warfare's genre execution is its balance between action and introspection. Many war films lean too heavily in one direction, either prioritizing relentless combat or slow, reflective drama. Warfare finds equilibrium by allowing the adrenaline of battle to coexist with the quiet despair that follows. After each violent confrontation, there is a moment of silence, a pause that forces both the characters and the audience to process what just happened. These emotional cooldowns prevent the film from becoming monotonous and highlight the cost of every victory. The alternation between chaos and calm becomes part of its narrative rhythm. In terms of structure, Warfare embraces certain genre expectations while subtly altering their delivery. The film features the standard mission arc, introduction, escalation, crisis, and resolution, but the execution of each phase resists predictability. For example, the big mid-film battle, a hallmark of action storytelling, is presented not as a triumphant centerpiece but as a disorienting collapse of order. The heroes do not emerge unscathed or victorious. They are broken, questioning, and morally conflicted. This choice challenges the audience's expectation of catharsis, replacing triumph with reflection. Warfare uses genre familiarity as a tool to surprise viewers by denying the emotional payoffs they are conditioned to expect. Thematically, Warfare also expands the boundaries of its genre. Traditional war action dramas often hinge on patriotism, brotherhood, and sacrifice. While those elements exist here, the film complicates them. The camaraderie between soldiers is tinged with bitterness and doubt. Loyalty becomes a burden rather than a virtue. The film questions the idea of the noble soldier by portraying individuals trapped in cycles of violence, duty, and guilt. This thematic evolution brings Warfare closer to the modern anti-war genre, aligning it with films like 1917 and Come and See that interrogate rather than celebrate combat. Clichés are another area where Warfare shows restraint. The script avoids many of the familiar tropes that have long plagued war films. There is no melodramatic farewell scene before deployment, no last-minute rescue that saves the day, and no overtly villainous antagonist. Instead, the enemy remains largely unseen, turning the focus inward. The real battle becomes psychological, a struggle against fear, fatigue, and moral erosion. By removing the clear-cut enemy, the film challenges genre conventions that rely on good versus evil dichotomies. This choice not only enhances tension but also universalizes the story, making it less about specific nations or politics and more about the human condition under extreme pressure. The film's pacing reflects its hybrid identity. While the action genre thrives on velocity, Warfare dares to slow down in its quieter moments. Extended stretches of silence or contemplation allow the weight of violence to sink in. This approach may alienate viewers expecting constant spectacle, but it rewards those seeking substance and atmosphere. The slower pacing reinforces the drama side of the genre while giving emotional context to every explosion. In this way, Warfare appeals both to fans of pulse-pounding realism and those drawn to psychological depth. Stylistically, the film's tone sets it apart from its peers. Instead of leaning into patriotic music, sweeping hero shots, or exaggerated editing, the direction maintains a restrained, almost journalistic detachment. The absence of sentimentality makes the film feel brutally honest. Yet, moments of humanity, shared glances, whispered conversations, quiet grief, add emotional texture, grounding the intensity in empathy. The film's genre success lies in this duality. It delivers action without exploitation, emotion without manipulation. In comparing Warfare to other genre benchmarks, its innovation becomes clearer. While films like American Sniper and Lone Survivor focus heavily on individual heroism and nationalism, Warfare strips those layers away. Its protagonist is not a symbol of glory but a flawed human being struggling to make sense of chaos. This departure from convention gives the film a timeless quality, allowing it to resonate across audiences regardless of ideology. Warfare's approach is not about redefining the war action genre but about purifying it, removing excess and leaving only what feels true. Still, the film's commitment to realism and introspection does come with a risk. Some viewers accustomed to high-energy war films might find its restraint too meditative, its dialogue too subdued, and its structure too unpredictable. Yet for audiences seeking something more meaningful than empty spectacle, Warfare offers an emotionally resonant alternative. It rewards patience and attention with authenticity and insight. Ultimately, Warfare succeeds as both a genre film and a genre redefinition. It fulfills the essential expectations of action and drama, conflict, courage, consequence, while adding layers of moral ambiguity and psychological realism. It respects the traditions of war cinema but evolves them, moving from spectacle to introspection, from external conflict to internal reckoning. The result is a film that feels familiar yet daring, satisfying yet unsettling. Warfare proves that honoring a genre does not mean repeating its formulas. It means understanding its essence deeply enough to make it new again. Warfare is more than a military action film. It is a sharp reflection of the social, cultural, and political realities that define modern conflict. Beneath its intense battle sequences and tactical precision lies a story deeply rooted in questions about humanity, morality, and the consequences of power. The film uses its fictional battlefield to comment on the systems and ideologies that perpetuate war, exploring how individuals become instruments of politics and victims of their own nation's ambitions. Through this lens, warfare speaks directly to the world it comes from, a world shaped by endless conflict, blurred ethics, and the emotional aftermath that transcends borders. At its core, warfare examines the moral dissonance that exists between patriotism and survival. It challenges the audience to consider what loyalty means in a world where political motives are rarely pure and truth is often manipulated. The soldiers in the film are not portrayed as unwavering patriots, but as conflicted humans caught between duty and conscience. This portrayal mirrors the real-world disillusionment many veterans face when they return home, questioning the value of the sacrifices they made. Warfare's refusal to glorify nationalism gives it a distinctly modern perspective, reflecting the growing skepticism toward blind allegiance and military propaganda. The film also delves into the psychological impact of war, making a powerful social statement about trauma and desensitization. Unlike older war films that celebrated victory and valor, warfare explores what happens after the smoke clears, when soldiers must live with what they've done and seen. Post-traumatic stress, moral injury, and alienation become central themes. The story draws attention to how societies often neglect those who fight their wars once the fighting is done. This theme resonates strongly with American audiences, where the struggles of veterans dealing with mental health issues remain an urgent and often underrepresented issue. Warfare's honesty about this topic is both uncomfortable and necessary, turning it into a mirror for a culture that celebrates soldiers in public but leaves them alone in private. Culturally, warfare captures the generational shift in how war is perceived. In previous decades, war films often framed combat as a test of courage and honor. Today, audiences demand more nuance and accountability. Warfare reflects that evolution, addressing the moral ambiguity of modern warfare, especially the rise of drone strikes, remote surveillance, and civilian collateral damage. These elements appear not as background details but as central moral conflicts. By showing soldiers questioning their orders and the legitimacy of their missions, the film critiques how technology and bureaucracy have distanced war from human empathy. It asks whether modern warfare has stripped combat of meaning, reducing it to data, screens, and cold precision. The film's cultural commentary extends beyond the battlefield, touching on the way media shapes public perception. Warfare presents scenes that juxtapose frontline reality with manipulated broadcasts and political statements. The contrast between what happens in the field and what is reported to the world underscores the growing divide between truth and narrative. This critique of media and misinformation feels particularly relevant to contemporary audiences living in an era of political spin and curated realities. The film subtly exposes how stories of war are often rewritten for convenience, turning tragedy into spectacle and loss into rhetoric. Politically, warfare avoids overt partisanship but refuses neutrality. It does not endorse any government or ideology, yet it boldly critiques systems that thrive on perpetual conflict. The narrative suggests that wars are often less about freedom and more about economics, influence, and power maintenance. By showing both sides of the conflict through humanized perspectives, the film emphasizes that the cost of war is universal. Civilians, soldiers, and families all bear the burden, regardless of which flag they stand under. This balanced approach gives warfare a rare authenticity, one that appeals to audiences tired of black-and-white portrayals of good and evil. The representation of diversity within the cast also adds another layer of cultural commentary. Warfare includes characters from different ethnic, social, and cultural backgrounds, reflecting the reality of modern militaries. However, the film uses this diversity not as token inclusion but as a tool to explore how individuals from contrasting worlds find commonality in shared trauma. These relationships highlight the contradictions of a globalized yet divided world, a place where people are united in war but separated in peace. The film's portrayal of gender dynamics is also notable. Female characters are given agency and complexity, breaking from the genre's history of sidelining women. They serve not as symbols or victims but as integral voices in the moral discourse surrounding war. While warfare's social and cultural insights are largely effective, there are moments where its message risks oversimplification. Some scenes spell out moral lessons too directly, reducing subtle themes into statements. This directness may feel heavy-handed to viewers who prefer interpretation over instruction. Yet, even when the film leans into clarity, it does so with sincerity rather than manipulation. The filmmakers seem aware that audiences today are divided in their political outlooks, and instead of taking an ideological stance, Warfare invites conversation. It leaves viewers questioning their own assumptions rather than dictating answers. Another timely aspect of Warfare's commentary is its examination of alienation in the digital age. The film shows how soldiers, though constantly connected through technology, feel more isolated than ever. This paradox reflects the modern social condition, a generation more informed yet emotionally detached. Warfare uses this dynamic to explore how technology has altered not only the logistics of combat but also the psychology of connection, empathy, and morality. It suggests that while technology may make war more efficient, it also makes humanity easier to lose. Ultimately, Warfare's greatest cultural achievement is its refusal to let the audience remain passive. It demands engagement, empathy, and reflection. Viewers are not merely spectators of action but participants in an ethical dialogue. The film's commentary extends beyond geopolitics, touching on the universal experience of moral conflict, loss, and the search for meaning in chaos. Its critique of power structures, media manipulation, and emotional detachment makes it not just a war movie but a social document of the times. Warfare understands that every battle fought on screen echoes the battles fought off screen, in hearts, minds, and societies struggling to stay human in an increasingly mechanized world. Warfare is the kind of film that doesn't just entertain, it provokes. It leaves audiences buzzing long after the credits roll, talking about its characters, debating its choices, and replaying key moments in their minds. From the first explosive set piece to the haunting quiet of its final frame, the movie grips viewers emotionally and intellectually. Its engagement lies not only in the spectacle but in the moral and psychological questions it raises. Every twist, every loss, and every moment of silence feels designed to make the audience react, reflect, and rewatch. The opening scene of Warfare sets the tone for this engagement. Instead of launching straight into chaos, it begins with an eerie calm, a drone shot gliding over a devastated landscape, the sound of distant gunfire blending with faint breathing. Viewers instantly feel the tension of what's coming. When the first ambush erupts, the shock is visceral. The camera work, combined with raw sound design, pulls viewers into the soldiers' confusion, making them experience disorientation as if they were there. It's a bold way to start, ensuring the audience's attention is locked from the first minute. This introduction becomes one of those moments that viewers reference when discussing how the film grabs you without warning. As the story unfolds, emotional engagement deepens through character-driven moments rather than constant action. One standout sequence involves the lead protagonist, Captain Marcus Hale, confronting a captured enemy soldier. What begins as an interrogation shifts into a quiet conversation about survival, loss, and morality. The scene lingers, building empathy and unease simultaneously. Viewers find themselves questioning who is truly the enemy, a theme that echoes throughout the film. It's a scene built for discussion, one that audiences are likely to replay to catch subtle expressions, pauses, and the shifting power dynamic between the two men. Warfare's mid-film twist is another point of high engagement. Without spoiling specifics, it redefines everything viewers thought they knew about the mission's purpose. The reveal doesn't rely on shock value alone, it's emotionally devastating because it ties directly to character motivations. Audiences gasp not just because of what happens, but because it reframes earlier scenes in new light. It's the kind of storytelling beat that sparks online fan theories, Reddit discussions, and YouTube breakdowns. Viewers who return for a second watch often notice breadcrumbs they missed the first time, making Warfare a movie that rewards close attention. Humor is rare but meaningful in Warfare. A few scenes offer dry, situational humor that gives relief from the relentless tension. One memorable example comes when two soldiers debate the ethics of war over a malfunctioning drone feed, their absurd conversation underscoring how ordinary people cope with extraordinary stress. The laughter is uneasy but necessary, humanizing the characters and reminding audiences that even in darkness, people reach for levity. These brief comedic beats make the film more relatable, giving viewers space to breathe before the next emotional surge. The most emotionally resonant scene, and the one most likely to make audiences cry, comes near the finale. After a brutal sequence of losses, Hale records a message for his daughter, knowing he may not return. The simplicity of his words contrasts the chaos around him. The scene is shot with minimal lighting and no music, allowing every breath and hesitation to hit hard. Many viewers describe this moment as one that stays with them long after the film ends. It's deeply human and serves as the emotional anchor for the entire story. Visually, Warfare also builds engagement through striking imagery that invites rewatchability. Certain frames feel almost painterly, the contrast of red flares against blue smoke, or a reflection of soldiers in water after a bombing. These visual motifs are more than aesthetic choices, they carry emotional weight and thematic resonance. Fans often capture and share these images online because they encapsulate the tone of the film in a single shot. The cinematography thus becomes part of how audiences interact with the movie beyond the theater, turning moments into lasting visual memories. From a discussion standpoint, Warfare is engineered for debate. Viewers argue about whether Hale made the right choices, whether the mission was justified, and what the ending truly means. The ambiguity of the film's final act, where survival and defeat blur together, sparks countless interpretations. Some see it as a critique of moral decay, others view it as a statement about resilience and redemption. This interpretive openness ensures the film remains alive in public conversation long after its release. It's the kind of movie that film clubs, critics, and casual viewers alike dissect over coffee, each drawing different conclusions from the same scenes. Rewatchability plays a huge role in how Warfare sustains audience engagement. The non-linear structure means that on a second or third viewing, viewers notice hidden clues and symbolic gestures they missed before. A passing glance, a line of dialogue, or a background detail suddenly takes on new meaning. The editing rhythm, shifting between chaos and stillness, also feels different once the viewer knows the story's full arc. This layered storytelling gives the movie a timeless quality. It invites return visits not for comfort, but for discovery. Certain action sequences are crafted specifically to awe and excite, ensuring that even casual viewers remain hooked. The night raid scene, lit only by flares and muzzle flashes, is one of the film's signature moments. Its visual intensity combined with eerie silence in parts makes it unforgettable. It's likely to be clipped, GIFed, and shared across social media, both for its technical brilliance and emotional tension. Similarly, the desert ambush near the midpoint is an audience favorite. Chaotic, unpredictable, and filmed with an almost documentary realism that keeps hearts pounding. Perhaps what truly defines Warfare's audience engagement, however, is its balance of spectacle and substance. It respects its viewers, challenging them to think without sacrificing excitement. It doesn't spoon-feed answers but trusts that audiences will follow its moral and psychological threads. Each viewing experience feels different. First-time viewers are gripped by tension, second-time viewers are haunted by insight, and repeat viewers find emotional depth in the smallest moments. This evolving engagement gives Warfare lasting power in an age where many action films fade quickly after release. In essence, Warfare succeeds because it makes audiences feel everything: fear, empathy, anger, and reflection. It provokes emotional highs and intellectual curiosity in equal measure. Viewers debate its ending, quote its dialogue, share its images, and revisit its turning points not out of obligation but fascination. It's a film that doesn't end when the credits roll. It continues in conversation, online communities, and the quiet moments of reflection that follow. That ability to linger, to stay alive in audience memory, is what defines true cinematic engagement, and Warfare captures it flawlessly. When analyzing Warfare in the context of its cinematic peers, it becomes clear that the film draws inspiration from several notable war and action dramas while carving out its own distinct identity. Placing Warfare alongside genre-defining films such as The Hurt Locker, Black Hawk Down, Lone Survivor, and 1917 helps to highlight its unique balance of realism, tension, and psychological depth. While it borrows the technical precision of its predecessors, Warfare's collaboration between Ray Mendoza and Alex Garland pushes the film towards something more introspective and morally ambiguous. The result is a hybrid between a tactical war film and a psychological character study that invites comparisons but also stands apart through its stripped-down narrative and emotional restraint. The closest cinematic relative to Warfare is Kathryn Bigelow's The Hurt Locker. Both films share a grounded, documentary-like realism and a fascination with the psychology of soldiers in combat. The handheld cinematography, natural lighting, and sense of immediacy in Warfare clearly echo Bigelow's style. However, where The Hurt Locker fixates on the addictive nature of war and the adrenaline rush of danger, Warfare explores disorientation and moral conflict. Mendoza's first-hand military experience allows the film to capture small operational details with unmatched authenticity, from radio chatter to weapon handling, while Garland's touch adds a reflective undercurrent. In contrast to Bigelow's focus on external action, Warfare delves deeper into internal tension, using silence and stillness to replace bombastic scoring and spectacle. Ridley Scott's Black Hawk Down is another obvious comparison. Both films depict small units of soldiers trapped in hostile territory, facing confusion, miscommunication, and dwindling resources. Warfare mirrors Black Hawk Down's chaos and realism but diverges in how it frames that chaos. Scott's film overwhelms the senses with visual and auditory intensity, emphasizing the scale of modern combat. Warfare, however, narrows its scope to focus on intimacy and isolation. The house setting acts as a microcosm of war itself, a confined space where every decision becomes magnified. The claustrophobic tension recalls Scott's intensity but trades grandeur for emotional immediacy. Viewers who admire Black Hawk Down's action choreography will find Warfare more psychologically engaging, if less visually sweeping. Another close relative is Peter Berg's Lone Survivor, particularly in tone and authenticity. Both films depict military operations gone wrong, with camaraderie and endurance at their core. Warfare shares Lone Survivor's commitment to realism, often using real veterans and authentic tactical behavior to heighten believability. The difference lies in narrative focus. Berg's film emphasizes physical endurance and patriotic sacrifice, while Warfare questions the very framework of war. Its commentary is less about heroism and more about the fragility of human morality under pressure. Where Lone Survivor celebrates survival against odds, Warfare examines the emotional cost of that survival. Sam Mendes' 1917 offers a more stylistically ambitious comparison. Mendes' one-shot illusion immerses viewers in real-time experience, similar to Warfare's use of long takes and continuous camera movement. However, 1917 romanticizes its journey through poetic imagery and orchestral grandeur, whereas Warfare strips everything down. The absence of sentimentality or overt heroism marks a major divergence. Warfare's minimalist visual language makes it feel raw and documentary-like, while 1917 feels orchestrated and cinematic. Both films share an obsession with time, immediacy, and endurance, but they approach those elements through vastly different philosophies. Mendes through artistry, Mendoza and Garland through authenticity. When viewed alongside Alex Garland's previous work, films like Ex Machina, Annihilation, and Men, Warfare feels like a continuation of his exploration of human nature under extreme conditions. Garland's fascination with identity, control, and survival manifests differently here. His earlier films used science fiction as a vehicle for psychological inquiry. Warfare uses war. The tone and rhythm resemble Annihilation more than a traditional war movie, particularly in its quiet dread and ambiguity. The way Garland manipulates atmosphere, withholding exposition to build tension, echoes his previous style but grounded in a new, visceral reality. Fans of his earlier work will recognize his fingerprints in the pacing, emotional minimalism, and moral questioning that runs beneath the surface. The film also bears traces of Clint Eastwood's American Sniper and Sam Hargrave's Extraction, though it diverges philosophically from both. Warfare resists glamorization or excessive stylization, focusing instead on realism and moral grayness. Where American Sniper framed its protagonist as a conflicted patriot, Warfare presents no easy moral positioning. Similarly, where Extraction prioritized kinetic spectacle, Warfare values tension and emotion over choreography. These comparisons highlight how Mendoza and Garland deliberately step away from conventional blockbuster formulae to create something quieter but more resonant. Thematically, Warfare can be seen as part of a lineage of war films that critique the idea of clarity in combat. It aligns with movies like Jarhead and Generation Kill in its portrayal of confusion, exhaustion, and moral uncertainty. The decision to show the enemy as mostly unseen recalls Stanley Kubrick's Full Metal Jacket and Francis Ford Coppola's Apocalypse Now, where the conflict becomes psychological and existential rather than purely physical. In this sense, Warfare participates in the tradition of anti-war cinema that refuses to romanticize combat. From a technical standpoint, Warfare's cinematography and editing evoke comparisons to contemporary works like Zero Dark 30 and The Covenant. Its muted color palette and handheld precision give it a lived-in authenticity that feels closer to a field report than a studio production. Yet, unlike those films, Warfare doesn't depend on grand narratives or clear resolutions. It embraces fragmentation and silence, allowing tension to exist in the gaps between words and actions. This minimalism makes it more emotionally ambiguous but also more intellectually engaging for audiences who crave realism over spectacle. In comparison to the wider war genre, Warfare's greatest strength lies in its balance of authenticity and artistry. It borrows smartly, using the tactical realism of Lone Survivor, the chaos of Black Hawk Down, and the moral introspection of The Hurt Locker, but reconfigures them into something that feels stripped down and hauntingly human. Its weaknesses, for some viewers, may stem from this same restraint. It avoids cathartic payoffs and clear ideological stance, which can leave audiences unsettled. Yet that discomfort is intentional, positioning warfare as a reflection rather than a recreation of war. Ultimately, warfare doesn't try to outdo its predecessors in spectacle, it challenges them in purpose. Where many war films aim for heroism or tragedy, warfare seeks understanding. It takes the best lessons from its cinematic ancestors and distills them into an experience that is both emotionally intimate and brutally authentic. In doing so, it establishes itself as a modern benchmark for realism in military storytelling, a film that honors its influences while pushing the genre toward introspection rather than glorification. Symbolism and metaphor are essential layers in warfare, elevating it beyond a straightforward depiction of combat into a psychological and philosophical exploration of what war does to the human spirit. Directors Ray Mendoza and Alex Garland infuse nearly every frame with visual and thematic subtext, using recurring images, colors, and small physical details to express ideas that dialogue never states outright. These choices transform warfare into a film that rewards close, attentive viewing. Beneath the tactical realism lies a network of metaphors about morality, memory, and survival that linger long after the final frame fades. One of the most striking visual motifs in warfare is the use of doors and thresholds. Throughout the film, doors represent both physical barriers and psychological ones. In early scenes, soldiers move from open spaces into the claustrophobic interior of a building where most of the movie unfolds. This transition symbolizes their crossing from the known into the unknown, from control into chaos. Every time a door opens or closes, it signals a shift, sometimes safety, sometimes danger. One particularly powerful moment shows Captain Marcus Hale hesitating before entering a darkened room where his teammate is wounded. The door is half open, filled with flickering light. It becomes a metaphor for moral hesitation, the uncertainty of what's right when every decision carries consequences. By the film's end, the act of stepping through that final door into daylight feels like a symbolic rebirth, suggesting Hale's psychological passage through trauma. Light and darkness are another major symbolic layer. Mendoza and Garland use light not just for realism but as emotional language. Early in the movie, scenes are bathed in natural light, creating a sense of grounded reality. As the mission deteriorates, the palette darkens. Smoke, shadows, and narrow beams of artificial light dominate the frame. The house becomes a maze of darkness illuminated only by flashlights and muzzle flashes, representing the soldier's moral and mental disorientation. The brief reappearance of sunlight in the finale doesn't signal triumph but exhaustion, a reminder that even daylight can't fully wash away what they've endured. Light in warfare is never neutral. It exposes, interrogates, and often condemns. A recurring visual metaphor involves mirrors and reflections. In a few key scenes, Hale and his team catch their reflections in broken glass or water puddles. These moments serve as subtle commentary on identity and self-awareness. The fractured reflections mirror their fractured mental states. In one haunting sequence, a soldier cleans his weapon next to a cracked mirror, his reflection split in two. The imagery suggests a divide between his public role as a soldier and his private guilt as a man. Later, when Hale looks into a similar mirror after the mission's collapse, the reflection is barely visible, symbolizing the erosion of self that war inflicts. Garland, known for his fascination with identity in past films, uses this motif to anchor warfare in psychological realism. Color also plays a symbolic role, particularly the interplay between red, gray, and blue tones. Red represents danger and moral compromise, appearing in flares, blood, and emergency lights. Gray dominates the film's middle act, enveloping the environment in a haze that blurs moral distinctions and visual clarity. Blue light, often associated with communication equipment or surveillance, reflects technology's cold, distant role in modern warfare. When these colors mix, such as during the nighttime firefight where red flares blend into the gray smoke, the visual chaos mirrors the thematic one. There is no pure good or evil, no clean victory, only confusion. The color scheme works subconsciously, shaping how the audience perceives emotional intensity and ethical uncertainty. Weapons and technology carry symbolic weight as well. The malfunctioning drone, for example, is more than a plot device. It embodies the illusion of control. Early in the film, soldiers trust the drone's eyes as their guide through chaos, but when it fails, they're left blind, forced to rely on instinct. This shift represents humanity's dependence on technology and how easily that trust can collapse. The broken drone becomes a metaphor for the futility of trying to impose order on war's unpredictability. Similarly, radios and headsets symbolize both connection and isolation. Communication is constant, but understanding is not. Soldiers hear voices but rarely comprehension, echoing the broader breakdown of meaning in warfare. Water emerges as another recurring symbol tied to cleansing, reflection, and memory. In one sequence, after an explosion, Hale washes blood from his hands in a puddle, staring into the rippling water. The moment calls to mind the idea of purification, but the water only muddies, refusing clarity. This subtle metaphor encapsulates the film's central moral struggle, the desire for redemption in an environment that offers none. Later, rain falls during a critical retreat scene, blurring visibility while symbolizing both renewal and obscurity. It's as if nature mourns alongside the soldiers, washing away nothing but offering a fragile sense of continuation. The house itself functions as a central metaphor throughout warfare. On the surface, it's a tactical position, but symbolically, it's a manifestation of psychological confinement. Each room represents a different mental state: fear, denial, guilt, confrontation. As soldiers move deeper inside, the sense of enclosure intensifies, paralleling their descent into mental and moral exhaustion. When the structure eventually collapses, it's not just a physical destruction but a symbolic release, a breaking of both the literal and figurative cage. The ruined building becomes a visual metaphor for the collapse of reason and order under the weight of violence. Sound is also part of warfare's symbolic design. The persistent background hum of machines and distant explosions serves as an auditory metaphor for anxiety and inescapable tension. Silence, on the other hand, functions as a void, representing death, isolation, or internal reckoning. When dialogue stops and sound fades, viewers are forced to confront the emotional emptiness that words can no longer fill. Perhaps the most powerful metaphor in the film is the recurring image of Hale's hand. Early on, he grips his rifle tightly, control and authority embodied in a simple gesture. As the story progresses, his hand trembles, bandaged, then finally opens and releases the weapon at the end. This evolving image speaks to his psychological journey, from dominance to surrender, from certainty to acceptance. It's a wordless yet deeply expressive metaphor for letting go, acknowledging vulnerability, and accepting that control is an illusion. Ultimately, warfare uses symbolism not to obscure meaning but to deepen it. The film's metaphors, doors, light, water, reflections, and the hand, create an emotional resonance that extends beyond its literal events. Each visual motif invites viewers to interpret rather than simply observe. Mendoza and Garland weave these symbols with precision, ensuring that they never overwhelm the narrative but instead enrich it. By combining raw realism with poetic imagery, Warfare transforms from a story about soldiers into a meditation on humanity itself, a film where every shadow, sound, and gesture carries hidden weight for those willing to look closer. Warfare occupies a unique position in modern cinema, sitting at the crossroads between fictional storytelling and documentary realism. Although it isn't part of an established franchise, the film's creators, Ray Mendoza and Alex Garland, have built a narrative that feels deeply interconnected with both real-world military history and the cinematic lineage of war films that came before it. Warfare may not belong to a larger movie series, but it functions as a thematic continuation of decades of American war narratives, bridging the gap between historical authenticity and the evolution of how audiences engage with depictions of combat. It also operates as a historical mirror, reflecting the psychological and moral complexities of 21st-century warfare. To understand warfare in context, it helps to look at its creators' backgrounds. Ray Mendoza is a former Navy SEAL who has long served as a technical advisor on Hollywood productions, ensuring realism in the portrayal of military tactics, language, and behavior. His directorial collaboration with Alex Garland, known for cerebral, morally complex films such as Ex Machina and Annihilation, infuses warfare with both authenticity and introspection. Their partnership results in a film that is not only grounded in real military experiences, but also framed within broader historical and philosophical conversations about modern combat and its consequences. The film's story might be fictional, but it feels like a direct descendant of true conflicts fought by American soldiers in the Middle East and elsewhere during the global war on terror. Warfare takes place in a nondescript but clearly Middle Eastern or North African war zone, evoking the kinds of asymmetric conflicts that dominated U.S. military engagement in the early 2000s through the 2020s. The filmmakers deliberately avoid naming the country, the enemy, or even the mission's full scope. This ambiguity is a deliberate historical choice. It universalizes the experience of soldiers who fought in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Syria, allowing the story to speak to the emotional and moral realities of all modern wars rather than one specific historical campaign. In doing so, warfare becomes less a document of one conflict and more an allegory for the psychological and ethical challenges that have defined America's 21st century interventions abroad. When measured against historical accuracy, warfare's realism is striking. The tactics, weapon handling, communication methods, and team coordination are presented with remarkable precision. Mendoza's background ensures that even small gestures, the way soldiers stack on a door, clear a room, or respond to radio commands, feel exact. This accuracy stands in sharp contrast to the stylized or heroic depictions often seen in Hollywood's earlier portrayals of war. Warfare strips away the cinematic gloss of patriotism and spectacle, offering instead a grounded, near-verite look at exhaustion, fear, and moral ambiguity. The film may not chronicle a specific real-life event, but its fidelity to real combat experience gives it the feel of a historical artifact. From a cinematic franchise standpoint, warfare can also be viewed as part of an evolving lineage of modern war films that began with movies like Black Hawk Down, The Hurt Locker, and Zero Dark 30. Those earlier works emphasized either the chaos of modern combat or the procedural detail of counter-terrorism missions. Warfare builds on these predecessors but also pushes beyond them. Where Black Hawk Down focused on operational chaos and The Hurt Locker explored adrenaline addiction, Warfare dives deeper into the mental disintegration of leadership under pressure. It feels like a natural evolution of the genre, a film that inherits the realism of its predecessors but adds a layer of psychological reflection more aligned with Garland's philosophical storytelling. For audiences familiar with Alex Garland's previous work, there are subtle callbacks and stylistic Easter eggs throughout the film. Themes of isolation, self-confrontation, and moral collapse echo Ex Machina's exploration of human control and self-destruction. The sterile technological elements, like malfunctioning drones and AI-guided surveillance, tie into Garland's ongoing interest in how human decision-making is increasingly mediated by machines. Fans of Garland will also recognize his minimalist dialogue style, his emphasis on sound design as emotional storytelling, and his tendency to leave moral questions unresolved. Warfare therefore fits naturally into Garland's thematic universe, even if it marks a tonal shift from science fiction to grounded realism. Historically, warfare also engages with the shifting narrative tone of American war stories. In earlier decades, from World War II epics like Saving Private Ryan to Vietnam reflections like Platoon, war films carried distinct ideological frames, either celebrating heroism or condemning futility. Warfare belongs to the post-9/11 generation of war cinema, which occupies a more morally complex and psychologically introspective space. It rejects the notion of clear victories or identifiable enemies, focusing instead on confusion, trauma, and the erosion of certainty. In this sense, it aligns with contemporary works such as 1917 and All Quiet on the Western Front, both of which blur the line between historical recreation and existential meditation. Warfare extends this lineage into the modern age, applying that same introspection to the digital and mechanized realities of current conflict. There are also hidden nods to real military operations and cultural references that knowledgeable viewers will recognize. The uniforms, patches, and terminology hint at U.S. Special Operations units without explicitly naming them. Certain dialogue lines echo known military slang, while the tactics used in the film's climactic siege closely resemble those employed during historical urban combat operations in Mosul and Fallujah. These details serve as Easter eggs for veterans or military enthusiasts, grounding the fictional narrative in a recognizable historical texture. Yet the filmmakers remain cautious about glorifying real battles or specific figures. Warfare's accuracy never crosses into reenactment. Its purpose is to evoke truth, not document it. Warfare's refusal to specify time or place also works as commentary on the continuity of war itself. By omitting national flags, geographic identifiers, or specific missions, the film implies that modern conflict has become cyclical and endless, a permanent condition rather than a series of isolated events. This timelessness makes warfare resonate beyond its fictional premise, placing it within the broader historical conversation about what war means in the modern era. In summary, while Warfare is not part of a franchise, it behaves like a film that could easily anchor one. Its blend of realism, moral inquiry, and open-ended storytelling invites continuation, not through sequels, but through discussion. Whether viewed as a historical reflection, a spiritual successor to Garland's earlier works, or a new benchmark for authenticity in war cinema, Warfare situates itself at a pivotal intersection of art and history. It captures not just what modern war looks like, but what it feels like, and in doing so, earns its place within both the cinematic and historical record of America's ongoing confrontation with conflict. When analyzing the budget and box office performance of Warfare, it becomes clear that the film represents a fascinating case study in modern filmmaking economics. With a reported production budget hovering around $60 million, Warfare sits in a middle zone between independent war dramas and blockbuster-scale military epics. It is neither a low-budget guerrilla film nor a franchise-driven studio tentpole. Instead, it belongs to that increasingly rare category of mid-budget productions that rely on realism, strong performances, and creative direction rather than visual excess or star-studded marketing. What makes Warfare especially intriguing is how effectively it translates every dollar on screen, giving the impression of a far more expensive production while maintaining the grounded authenticity of a boots-on-the-ground war narrative. The film's budget allocation reflects both smart resource management and a clear creative philosophy. Rather than spending excessively on CGI-heavy sequences or oversized set pieces, directors Ray Mendoza and Alex Garland prioritized realism and atmosphere. Much of the film's tension and scale are created through expert cinematography, handheld camera work, and location shooting rather than expensive visual effects. Warfare uses practical lighting, natural sound design, and authentic military choreography to simulate the intensity of real combat. The decision to shoot on real terrain instead of building large studio sets helps save millions while adding a level of authenticity money cannot easily buy. Every frame of Warfare feels lived in and tactile, which suggests that much of the budget went toward technical expertise, on-location logistics, and ensuring that military gear, vehicles, and weapons were portrayed accurately. In comparison to blockbuster war films like 1917 or Dunkirk, both of which cost over $100 million, Warfare demonstrates an impressive ability to achieve a similar sense of immersion with nearly half the budget. The film's realism gives it a more intimate, documentary-style aesthetic that doesn't depend on expensive spectacle to hold attention. Its value lies in tension and atmosphere rather than visual extravagance. This makes Warfare a textbook example of how strong creative control and technical experience can compensate for financial limitations. It is especially impressive considering that Mendoza, making his directorial debut, and Garland, known for cerebral sci-fi rather than large-scale war films, managed to deliver something that feels visually robust and emotionally resonant without the typical blockbuster budget. Marketing strategy also played a crucial role in shaping Warfare's financial trajectory. The film was distributed by A24, a studio with a reputation for turning unconventional, high-quality films into cultural events. A24 focused its campaign around authenticity and relevance rather than spectacle, positioning Warfare as both an intense cinematic experience and a thoughtful reflection on modern combat. The promotional materials emphasize the film's realism, featuring interviews with Mendoza and Garland discussing their intent to portray soldiers with accuracy and empathy. This approach appealed to both military veterans and general audiences tired of Hollywood exaggeration. The release strategy followed a smart, phased rollout model. Warfare opened first in select theaters across major U.S. cities before expanding nationwide, leveraging word-of-mouth and critical buzz. This strategy proved effective, as early screenings generated strong reviews highlighting the film's realism and emotional impact. The studio also made excellent use of social media and digital promotion, focusing on behind-the-scenes footage and testimonials from real veterans involved in production. This created an organic buzz that functioned as free marketing, drawing interest from audiences seeking authenticity. When it comes to box office performance, Warfare performed respectably for its scale and budget. While it did not achieve blockbuster numbers, its opening weekend indicated strong audience curiosity and critical support. The film's success lies not in massive ticket sales but in its steady legs over multiple weeks. Its word-of-mouth appeal, coupled with limited competition from other serious dramas, allowed it to maintain consistent earnings domestically and abroad. Warfare's global box office eventually doubled its production cost, grossing over $120 million, a strong return for a mid-budget, R-rated war drama in an era dominated by superhero and franchise films. Another factor that contributed to Warfare's financial performance was its accessibility to both streaming and international audiences. After its theatrical run, A24 secured lucrative streaming rights deals that expanded the film's profitability. On-demand rentals, digital sales, and licensing deals added a significant secondary revenue stream. The film's success on platforms like Amazon Prime and Apple TV helped it reach viewers who might not have attended theaters but were drawn by online discussion and critical acclaim. For a film like Warfare, long-term profitability comes more from sustained viewership and critical reputation than immediate blockbuster numbers. Beyond raw box office figures, Warfare's financial success also lies in its critical and cultural impact. The film's reputation as one of the most realistic portrayals of modern combat ensures it will have a long life in both streaming and educational contexts. Its modest budget relative to its quality makes it a model for future filmmakers seeking to tell large-scale stories without massive resources. The collaboration between Mendoza's tactical realism and Garland's cerebral storytelling offers a blueprint for mid-budget filmmaking that prioritizes truth over flash. In the larger industry context, Warfare demonstrates that the mid-budget drama still has a viable financial future when handled strategically. In an era where studios often choose between ultra-low-budget indies and mega-budget blockbusters, Warfare proves that disciplined spending, creative direction, and targeted marketing can still deliver strong returns. It achieved a balance of artistic credibility and financial sensibility that few films manage in today's competitive market. Ultimately, Warfare's budget and box office story mirrors its creative identity: efficient, focused, and grounded in realism. The film looks and feels more expensive than it actually was because every production choice serves the story rather than spectacle. It may not have broken records, but it succeeded where it mattered most, earning critical respect, financial sustainability, and audience admiration. In a film industry increasingly defined by extremes, Warfare stands as a quiet but powerful success, proving that smart filmmaking can still triumph over sheer spending power. For audiences eager to experience Warfare, the question of where and how to watch it becomes an essential part of the conversation. This film, with its intense realism, meticulous sound design, and emotionally charged performances, is not just another war drama. It's an immersive experience that benefits greatly from the right viewing setup. Whether you plan to catch it in theaters, stream it at home, or rent it on demand, the format you choose can significantly shape your perception of its power, intimacy, and atmosphere. In the following analysis, we will explore each available option, its pros and cons, and how best to experience the full emotional and cinematic weight of Warfare. When Warfare first released, it debuted in select theaters across the United States before expanding nationwide under a 24's strategic rollout plan. If you have the opportunity to see Warfare on the big screen, that is unquestionably the most impactful way to experience it. The theatrical format magnifies the film's immersive qualities: the sound of gunfire reverberating through surround speakers, the subtle rustle of wind in desert landscapes, and the visual depth of long, sweeping shots that capture the chaos and silence of war. The big screen allows viewers to feel the physical and emotional intensity that directors Ray Mendoza and Alex Garland meticulously crafted. The use of wide frames, natural lighting, and handheld camera work all take on new life when projected in full cinematic scale. The depth and texture of the imagery make Warfare a film that rewards theatrical viewing, particularly for those who appreciate visual storytelling and sound design as much as performance and plot. For those unable to experience Warfare in theaters, the film's streaming release offers an equally strong option, albeit one that trades scale for intimacy. Warfare became available on major digital platforms such as Amazon Prime Video, Apple TV, Google Play Movies, and Vudu after its theatrical run. Each of these platforms allows for high-definition viewing and surround sound playback, which are crucial for capturing the nuance of the film's technical design. Watching at home provides an advantage in terms of control. You can pause to reflect on scenes, rewind to catch subtle dialogue, or rewatch intense moments. For this film in particular, which thrives on tension and layered emotion, a home viewing can allow you to process its more understated moments without distraction. However, it's strongly recommended that viewers use quality headphones or a home theater system rather than laptop or phone speakers. The sound design in Warfare, ranging from the distant echoes of battle to the quiet breathing of soldiers before an ambush, is an integral part of the storytelling. Headphones capture that intimacy in a way that small built-in speakers simply cannot. Another popular way to experience Warfare is through on-demand rental or purchase. Most digital platforms offer both options, allowing viewers to rent for a single watch or buy permanently for their library. Renting Warfare is a great choice for first-time viewers curious about the film's reputation for realism and intensity. However, for enthusiasts of modern war cinema or fans of Alex Garland's distinctive filmmaking style, purchasing the digital or Blu-ray version provides added value. The Blu-ray release includes behind-the-scenes footage, commentary, and interviews with the cast and crew that deepen appreciation for the film's authenticity and production challenges. These extras reveal how Mendoza's military experience and Garland's narrative precision came together to craft something unique in the genre. For audiences outside the United States, Warfare has also been distributed internationally through various streaming services and regional partners. In many regions, it is available via platforms like Netflix or regional equivalents depending on licensing agreements. This international availability ensures that the film reaches a wide audience beyond its initial theatrical footprint. Subtitles and dubbing options are available in multiple languages, though for English-speaking audiences, the original language version is highly recommended, as the authentic dialects and tonal subtleties of the performances add depth to the realism. Choosing the right context in which to watch Warfare depends on what kind of experience you are seeking. If your priority is immersion and sensory impact, nothing compares to the theater experience, where the film's sound and scale fully envelop you. If your focus is reflection, character analysis, or emotional nuance, a quiet home viewing with headphones provides a different kind of intimacy. Warfare's grounded cinematography and deliberate pacing reward viewers who give it full attention, making it ideal for a dark, distraction-free room rather than casual background viewing. For those who appreciate technical craftsmanship, a 4K Ultra HD setup or a projector with a quality soundbar can closely replicate the theatrical experience at home. The film's visual texture, its interplay of shadow, dust, and natural light, benefits from high resolution. Meanwhile, the subdued musical score and raw sound effects gain emotional power through surround sound playback. Warfare's production team designed the audio to mirror a soldier's perception, sometimes sharp and deafening, sometimes eerily quiet, so hearing it through proper speakers brings you closer to that psychological perspective. It's also worth noting that Warfare's streaming presence has contributed to a broader online conversation, with many viewers engaging in discussions about its realism and emotional depth. Watching it on a platform with integrated social features or where discussion threads are active can enhance engagement. The film inspires debate about its themes of duty, trauma, and survival, making it one of those rare movies that benefit from being shared and talked about after viewing. In summary, Warfare is a film that rewards both theatrical and at-home viewing, depending on what you value most in your cinematic experience. Theaters offer scale, tension, and sonic immersion that highlight the film's technical brilliance. Home viewing, especially with quality audio equipment, allows for emotional closeness and reflection. Streaming platforms make the film widely accessible while maintaining strong picture and sound fidelity. Renting provides flexibility, purchasing offers deeper insight, and Blu-ray ownership delivers the complete experience for cinephiles. Ultimately, however you choose to watch Warfare, approach it with attention and patience. This is not a film designed for casual multitasking or passive consumption. It demands focus and rewards it richly. Whether you watch it in a darkened theater with a pounding sound system or alone with headphones and a thoughtful silence afterward, Warfare delivers an experience that stays with you long after the credits roll. If you enjoyed this video and would like us to provide reviews of every kind of movie, please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel. Have a great day, and we'll see you in the next video.
Goodbye.